What's going on, guys? And welcome back to #AskGSM here today for Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. This is episode 589, hot off the heels of what I thought was a good episode of Raw overall and a very hot finish to that show. CM Punk, Seth Rollins, inside of a steel cage. We're going to talk a lot about that here today. Any questions you guys have in the chat, be sure to drop them in the chat. I'll answer them live here on the air as we go along. A lot of questions about just the state of wrestling right now, a lot of WWE questions. We could talk about really whatever you guys want. So if you're joining live, be sure to drop your question in the chat. I would appreciate it. Couple things before we get going here. Obviously, if you are watching live or after the fact, I would appreciate it if you like the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm sure you guys already have. But be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified every single time we drop a new video and every single time we go live, like today. Could be around 11, 12, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You just never really know. So be sure to like the video. I would appreciate that. I'll get to the chat in a little bit. What was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh, yeah, Wrestle Rant Ranks, new episode. Went up a little bit later than I was anticipating. Yesterday, I was in New York City all day Sunday, so I couldn't get the video up sooner on Monday. But you can check out the new Wrestle Rant Ranks right now, breaking down 6 times I thought John Cena should have gone heel instead over the last 15, 16, 17 years. In the time that I've been a wrestling fan, there were other instances where I would have turned John Cena heel first before we saw it at Elimination Chamber. So check that video out, almost 30 minutes long. A lot of rambling from yours truly, but I'm very passionate about that topic, so be sure to check that video out for Monday. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Monday evenings, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video after it's done processing and after we're done being live. If you are joining live, like I said earlier, you can drop a comment in the chat. I'll answer it live on the air as we go along here. It may not be imminent. I might wait a little bit to answer your question, but if you are joining live, I can answer your question a little bit later on. I think that's about everything. One last thing, though. If you want to buy a t-shirt, WrestleRant store, ProWrestlingTees.com/WrestleRant. Anytime's a good time to buy a shirt. There's a few different designs available, courtesy of Alexis. We have a WrestleRant shirt, a WrestleRant Halloween shirt, and a WrestleRant Christmas shirt. And I only mention that because currently, right now, through Wednesday, I'm not sure what time, but Pro Wrestling Tees running a Merch Madness sale, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Not sure when it wraps up exactly on Wednesday or what code you have to use, but I'm pretty sure they're doing a sale right now, 20% off of all shirts in their store, including the WrestleRant store. So if you go to ProWrestlingTees.com, be sure to find the code if possible. Support the show, support the brand. ProWrestlingTees.com/WrestleRant, all also available in the description box of this very video. Drop in the code and you'll get 20% off. Also, one last thing I promise before we get going here. First, hashtag AskGSM, second stream, but first, hashtag AskGSM with the new 4K camera courtesy of Alexis. So I think it came out well. I ran into some issues streaming the other day, I believe with some people as far as like the bit rate being off and it was like lagging a little bit. So if there's any issues with the lagging or the audio, specifically the video, if it's an audio issue, it's probably on your end, so close the stream and come back. That typically works for people. But if it's a video issue, please let me know, and maybe I'll try to... There's a couple things I still need to tweak, but I am getting messages on the back end from YouTube saying that the bit rate is off, so I have to fix that probably after we're off the air before the next stream on Thursday. We will be live on Thursday. What time? TBD. I'm not exactly sure yet, but we will be live with Mr. Marceau, breaking down all the latest in the world of wrestling for Wrestle Rant Radio on Thursday. So with all that being said, we'll get started here in just a moment with the questions. I will pull up the chat now. Just give me a second here. A lot of people joining in the chat. Fernando was the first one to chat in, saying, hello, everyone. Fernando, if you're still here, hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining me, man. Always great to see you. Alexis is here as well. Nathaniel is here. Nathaniel had said, hi, I'm disappointed in the main event finish, but I hope that it hints at a Cope Cage reunion in the future. I mean, we're definitely getting a Cope Christian Cage reunion in AEW at some point. It's more a matter of when than if. I don't think we get it imminently. I mean, Christian tried to steal that championship opportunity away from Cope, and he's probably got to be pissed that he got pinned in that match and not Cope. He still has the patriarchy, and I think Cope, we just had him feuding with Christian about a year ago, so I wouldn't go back to that too soon. But by the end of 2025, I think there's a decent chance. Nick joining us. Nick, great to see you. Hope you're doing well, dude. Daniel is joining us as well at the salute emoji. Daniel, thank you for joining us. As always, great to see you. Let's see, scrolling down a little bit. Nathaniel talking to Fernando about the Cope Cage reunion. Nathaniel's been talking about this Cope Cage reunion now for like months here on the stream. So I know no one will be happier when it happens than Mr. Nathaniel. Daniel had said, my answer to your question is LeBron the Breaker. So the question, we're actually getting to that question first. After I'm done with the chat stuff, I'm going to go to the first question of the video. And the first question for the video is actually the headline question. Who would have been the face of WWE had it not been, CM Punk or Cody Rhodes coming back to the company? Be sure to send in your comments about that. We'll answer that question imminently. So that will be the first question actually answered today. You don't have to wait an entire hour and a half, as I usually do, because we've gone very late and very long with these live streams in recent weeks, specifically with hashtag. WrestleRant Radio last week was also long, but if people keep joining and keep chatting, then I'm just going to be here for as long as possible. I do have to go at some point, but it's hard to leave when people are still chatting in and we're having fun. So anyway, Millennial Noob also joining us. Millennial Noob, hope you're doing well, dude. He said, good morning, Graham. How are you doing today? I am doing well. Thanks for joining us, my man. Good to see you in the chat. Let's see. Nathaniel also said, looks like Roman Reigns versus Punk versus Seth. I wonder who wins. I'm wondering that as well. Hopefully at some point, we can kind of figure that out. It will not be right now. I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be, but I am looking forward to that match, though, at WrestleMania. Not yet made official, but that's clearly the match that we're going to be getting. Daniel had said a little bit earlier on, I'm glad in that Cena vid, that WrestleRant Ranks vid I mentioned earlier, that you mentioned how over Randy was as a face in 2010, 2011. Brother, I mean, I am going to shout that from the rooftops. I feel like, yeah, it's been 15 years, but even at that point, in the immediate years that followed that Randy Orton babyface turn, it did not get talked about enough that Randy Orton was so fucking over back in 2010 when he turned on the legacy. And the funniest thing about that whole thing, which actually involved Cody Rhodes, who John Cena betrayed back at the Elimination Chamber a couple of weeks ago. But the funniest thing about that whole legacy thing, the whole point of the legacy was to elevate DiBiase and Rhodes, and ideally make Rhodes, I think, or actually DiBiase specifically, like the breakout babyface of that group. DiBiase, who left the company only a few years later and has not wrestled really since, and is now like either in jail or has some legal issues or whatever, was supposed to be the breakout babyface of that group. That didn't exactly work. The group got Orton more over than either of them, but Orton went on this fucking amazing stretch in 2010 where I still love that six-pack challenge. I enjoy that overall show. Night of Champions 2010, one of the first pay-per-views I ever purchased. Orton won the belt on that show in Chicago, a great six-pack main event. And he was just so fucking over, man. He was like universally loved. I was calling him like the Stone Cold Steve Austin of WWE at that point. I was mere years into my fandom, so it was probably a little naive for me to say something so foolish. But it kind of felt that way in a certain sense, where he was that over. So, it was an amazing time to be an Orton fan back in 2010. Probably his peak, but that was 15 years ago, and he's had a lot of great years since then as well. Alexis also sent in the chat, what should be the next t-shirt design be? Maybe we could do a poll. I'm thinking the next t-shirt design is going to be a WrestleRant radio shirt specifically. I want to get that, logo and whatnot on a t-shirt. But, maybe if the people, we could do a poll at some point, probably on the community tab of the channel, and we can figure out what we want to do for the next design. But if you guys are watching live or chatting in, be sure to let us know. What would you like to see on a t-shirt for a WrestleRant t-shirt, whether it be something stupid, something cool? Alexis is the designer. She could take your suggestions and hopefully make it possible. John Ritland, great to see you, John. Hope you're doing well. He is chatting in now saying, checking in at work in case I'm not around long. Raw in Madison Square Garden was kind of a wash outside of Roman Reigns attacking Seth Rollins to set up the three-way. He also said AEW Revolution had quite a few great moments / matches, but that main event was so draining and lousy. I'll probably talk more about Revolution in length on Thursday's WrestleRant Radio. I enjoyed the overall show. Revolution was a very strong show. It's amazing how, they had how many matches? 9, 10, whatever the fuck it was. Almost every single match was good to great, including even the pre-show. And then they get to the main event, and it is by far, not even close, the worst match on the show. And it's not even like the finish was bad. The actual match was fucking boring. The actual match was not good. And I don't know what it is with Edge. I love Edge, and this includes WWE. This is not an AEW issue. With Edge, ever since he came back to wrestling, maybe it's because he's 50 or almost 50, whatever. But either his matches are really, really good, or they're really, really fucking boring. Like in WWE, his matches with Balor, like specifically the second one, I didn't really like. I didn't like that Hell in the Cell match. And he won, which was the wrong outcome. But like the first match with Orton at WrestleMania 36 was fucking boring. And then they had a rematch also inside of an empty arena, so you can't even blame that. They had a rematch inside the empty arena for like the greatest wrestling match ever, which it wasn't, obviously. But that was excellent. So I don't know. With Edge, it's really weird. But the booking of that finish sucked. Moxley retaining sucked. Christian wasting the contract sucked. I thought that the whole Death Rider thing sucks. The whole Death Rider storyline is awful. So yeah, I was not a fan of the finish at all. But I enjoyed the overall show. Raw itself, you said it was a kind of a lousy or kind of a wash of a show. I thought it was solid for what it was. I liked the show. I thought it, could have been better in points. The best part of the show was easily the main event. Like Jey Uso versus Grayson Waller, who really gives a shit? Raquel Rodriguez versus Bayley. People clearly did not care. They were very quiet during that match, and I felt bad. But the best part of that show, the Cody Rhodes promo was really good, but the main event was awesome. That was excellent. No L chatting in here. They actually asked the question over on Facebook that I'll get to a little bit later on. But they said here, I'm pretty sure Roman would have been the face if Cody and Punk didn't come back. We'll get to that momentarily. Benji is joining us, plus Ultra Benji. Benji, what's going on, dude? Great to see you in the chat. I've known Benji for a very long time through the Twitter machine. Actually, I've yet to meet up in person. He's one of the people on my short list of people I've known on social media through Twitter for we're talking well over a fucking decade now. So Benji, great to see you, my man. Hope you're doing well. Also, while you're here, I'm not sure while everyone else is here, not Benji specifically, but I don't know if Benji does it through his YouTube or if he does it through his Twitch. I think it's on Twitch. He does a lot of gaming stuff, a lot of Twitch streaming. He does great content. Benji's awesome, very likable, damn good dude. So check out his shit as well. If you're a big gamer and like just a wide variety of games, Benji does all of that. He does the streaming. So click on his profile, find him on Twitter as well. I think it's the same Twitter handle, plus Ultra Benji. But yeah, Benji's awesome. Nathaniel had sent in a comment saying, yeah, because Edge and Christian was my favorite tag team growing up. Sorry, I just missed them as a tag team. Whenever they tag team or whenever they team up and possibly win tag team gold, I'll be really excited. Nathaniel, when that reunion happens, you will be the first person I think of, and you'll be the first person that we talk about it with here on the stream at some point when it happens, whether it be down the road or eventually, we'll see. Central Man Network also joining us. What's going on, dude? Thanks for joining us. He said, thoughts on Moxley as a heel? Not good. Not good. I can go on a rant about this. I'll keep it short because I want to get through all the comments before we start to answering questions. But the thing with Moxley is that I always had higher expectations for him as a heel. Like, you heard all these stories. When he first came into the company back in 2010, 2011, debuted in 2012 on the main roster in WWE, you heard all these great stories about his work in FCW. I saw some of those matches too. He was working with the Shield guys, but not only that, he was working with Regal. He was working with Regal, who wasn't even really an active performer at that point. They were having great fucking matches, great promos. He was doing that whole thing on social media with Mick Foley. They never really culminated in anything because Foley had to immediately retire at the request of doctors and whatnot. So it didn't really lead to anything. But yeah, you heard all this buzz about Moxley, or Ambrose rather, at that point, being this great fucking heel. And obviously he came up as a heel in the Shield. He was great in the Shield. But then he breaks off from the Shield as a babyface, which was great because he was organically over and he worked really well as a babyface, but he was in that role for a very long time. When we finally get the Moxley heel turn in 2018 on his own, or the Ambrose heel turn, it wasn't really necessarily his fault, but the creative he was given with the gas mask shit and all the awful material that he was given was so bad, it caused him to leave the company when his contract expired mere months later. Now, would he have stayed had it not been for that heel turn and the booking around it? I don't know. He probably would have left anyway. But that was really, I think, for him, the final nail in the coffin. So then you think to yourself, okay, what can he do as a heel when he doesn't have the handcuffs, when he has more creative freedom? Vince McMahon isn't fucking booking shit. He's not writing this garbage. So we get to see that in AEW. He goes to AEW. He's obviously a babyface for so long because he's so popular, and he had a great first couple of years in AEW. And I'm not saying Moxley's awful by any means, but him as a heel in this Death Rider shit, which reportedly he had a very, a big hand in. He had a very big hand in writing that storyline and booking it, and had a lot of creative control. Tony Khan said recently that he's actually, stepping back a little bit from giving more wrestlers creative freedom. So I'm not sure what that means exactly. That means to me that the ending of Revolution had Tony Khan's fingerprints all over it. That's what that tells me. So I don't know. I think Moxley was very heavily involved in the whole Death Rider shit and turning heel and the promos. The promos are just rambling nonsense. They're just cryptic and they don't really mean anything. There was never any end game. The matches aren't really all that exciting. The interference bullshit is awful. Yeah, I mean, that's a long answer to your question, but I just feel like with Moxley, like, my expectations were higher. I really thought he would do better work as a heel. He has his own faction. He kind of sort of retired Bryan Danielson. You would think it would have been better for him as a heel, and it just hasn't been. It just has been the farthest thing from entertaining television. Not even entertaining, but like interesting or must see. It is the exact opposite of all of those words I just used. It is not good. So I don't know. I'm very disappointed because at some point I thought we would get to see what I'd always heard about. Maybe he was a great heel back in the day and he's just not that guy anymore. And that was like 15 years ago. So it's just a different washed Moxley. I don't think he's washed. I don't think that's really fair to say. But like the heel work, it's a bummer that we never really got to see. What made him such a great heel, apparently, I didn't really cover or watch rather all of his work on like the indies and in FCW and shit. What apparently made him so great as a heel 15, 12 years ago, it's a bummer that we didn't get to see that on a mainstream major level. Like, obviously, he was a heel for a little bit in WWE. Later on, it was terrible. In The Shield, he was a part of a group. And in AEW, he's been a heel now, but it just hasn't been good. So, to sum it up in one word, it has been very disappointing. Daniel said Cody has talked about how he was told, don't screw things up for Ted. Yeah, Cody has told that story a lot about how Ted DiBiase was like the golden child. And, I always thought like the funniest thing, I've told this story before. It's not like a story, but I'll mention this. This YouTube channel, I think technically still is. I mean, you can change the name of your channel, but like the account that I created, the username, I think if you put it in as part of like the YouTube username, it might still work. Obviously, it's called Wrestle Rank. GSM Matthews also works. That's what it was for a long time. But for the longest time, my username on YouTube, and I think still is, was Ted DiBiase Priceless 9. Because I love Ted DiBiase so much. Like, he was my favorite wrestler for a very long stretch. And I thought he could have been a bigger star. In retrospect, I'm thinking, probably not. He didn't really have the same charisma or the in-ring ability that even Cody Rhodes did. But I was a big Ted fan for a very long time. Finally got a chance to tell him that and meet him a couple of years ago at WrestleCon, and he was a very nice guy. That was before his legal troubles, but he was a very nice guy. John Retland said, but Legacy did elevate DiBiase to getting involved with his dad and grifting money from hardworking people in Mississippi, allegedly. Quote unquote, he says. Yeah, apparently. Daniel said Randy probably had no desire to do any of the face of the community duties at that point, LOL. Yeah, I mean, I think with Randy, like, he was a top babyface, but I think the problem that he had was the same problem that Punk had in 2011 when they turned Punk babyface. It's not that Orton, I don't know if he did or did not want to do the top of the, like, the face of the company duty stuff as far as being a media guy and stuff like that. I don't know if he didn't want to do it because he was doing media around that point. Maybe not as much as he doesn't really do media now, I guess. But, like, he was a different person at that point. I acknowledge that. But I think the biggest thing with Orton was that he was never going to be the guy in 2010 until they turned Cena. That was the point I was trying to make in the video yesterday. Until they turned Cena, Orton was never going to be the guy. And because they never turned Cena, Punk was never going to be the guy. Orton was never going to be the guy. Daniel Bryan was never going to be the guy. And then they had Roman Reigns, and they kind of transitioned into him. And then Roman Reigns, even in that role, did not work. He just wasn't interesting. Punk was, Orton was, even Bryan was. And they just never really fully went all in on any of those guys because they had Cena to fall back on, and then Roman Reigns was also their handpicked, face of the company. They never really handpicked Orton. He was a company guy, but like, I don't know. Orton was always and still is very popular as a babyface, and now it's too late. Like, obviously, he's like 40-something years old. He's not going to be the face of the company now. But he could have been in 2010. He absolutely could have been, but they just did not turn Cena when they had the chance, when it would have been most interesting as well. Millennial Noob said a little bit earlier on, let me backtrack a little bit, the match between Toni Storm and Mariah May was violent and amazing, and that ending shot was perfect timing, too bad it should have been the main event. Brother, I fucking agree. That's just, it is absolutely ridiculous that it did not close that show. And I thought to myself, like, okay, we knew going in, it was reported that Cope and Mox was going to be the main event. I'm thinking, okay, I get it. It's the world title match. It's not interesting. The fucking build is sucked. The Death Rider stuff is awful. but I get it. And maybe there's a good reason. I gave them too much faith here. Maybe there's a good reason why the Hollywood ending, which is literally billed as the Hollywood ending in fucking Hollywood, is not closing this show. And then we've come to find out, I thought the Hollywood ending match, and it was a great match. It was an excellent match. But I'm thinking maybe it's going to be more cinematic, and that's why they didn't want to close with it, because there's, paying people in attendance. You're not going to close the show with people in attendance with a fucking cinematic match. You'll probably have it in the middle of the show or have it carry out through most of the show. They didn't even do that. They just had a regular match. And it was great, like a regular hardcore match. But like that match and what we saw now, knowing now what we know, that could have closed the show. And it's not even as if, like, another excuse I was kind of making was, okay, maybe they have a big angle planned for the end of that pay-per-view, and that's why that match is going on last. No, that wasn't the case either. It was whatever that angle was supposed to be. It was overbooked. It was lazy. It was not good. It was a waste of the contract. Cope didn't win. Christian didn't win. Fucking Jay White didn't win. It was Mox retaining the worst possible outcome. It was terrible. So yes, Mariah and Tony not only deserve credit for the match itself, but the entire story. And everyone else involved in making that story what it was deserve a lot of credit. It is easily top 3 best feuds in AEW history. I think it's got to be Swerve Hangman, Tony Mariah, Punk MJF. That's probably what I would say. Swerve Hangman, Punk MJF, and Tony Mariah are, to me, the top 3 feuds in AEW history so far. John Ritland said about Revolution, the whole Jericho versus Gravity thing, the jokes write themselves, folks, he says. I agree. Was peak wrestle crap. And why did Aubrey go and get Gravity's mother and sis while 3 guys were in the ring? I don't know. The best thing about that whole thing was that we didn't get the match. Thank fucking God we did not get the match, so it didn't matter that much of a chance. It didn't really, I was reading another super chat or another chat. Benji had also wrote, I'll read your question or comment in a second. But yeah, that whole thing did not make any sense at all. Nick said, men's tag title question. With the match from last week and what seemed like a positive reception for Pretty Deadly, do you see Pretty Deadly taking over the titles, or do you see the Street Profits winning? It's a good question. I think they're doing DIY and the Profits on Friday's SmackDown. I think if you're going to build this whole story around the Profits winning the belts for the first time in 4 or 5 years, first of all, they should. But second of all, if you're going to do that at this point, we're so close to Mania, why not just do it there? Unless they're not planning to put those guys on Mania, which would be just wild to me, because why not? They've been doing this whole tag team story inside the SmackDown tag team division for many, many months now. How do you not have that culminate in a big multi-tag team match at WrestleMania? So I do not see Pretty Deadly winning the belts. I was honestly kind of surprised to see them win on SmackDown, but they were fucked out of their opportunity at the tag titles a couple of weeks ago, so it kind of makes sense. So, no, I think we're going to get DIY retaining via some bullshit. If the Profits win, that's great. But I think DIY retain and then face Pretty Deadly on SmackDown. We will not get, I don't think Pretty Deadly are going to Mania in a regular tag team match. If they're going to Mania for the tag titles, it's going to be a fatal 4-way or a fatal 5-way or something along those lines. Daniel Malcolm said the Cope Hogan allegations got stronger after that match, LOL. Yeah, as far as like Cope not wanting the job and do stuff like that, yeah, they definitely did. And that's unfortunate. He's won a lot of his matches since he's been back in wrestling in the last 5 years. And I've enjoyed a lot of his work, but it's just like, can you not afford to make him look a little weaker? Like, even Punk did more fucking jobs in AEW. In the 2 years he was there, I know Edge was injured for a while last year. But, like, Punk lost to MJF. He lost to Ricky Starks. I think he lost the tag team match as well. Like, he lost a handful of matches while he was there. I don't know. He lost to Moxley at one point. Cope has only lost one match, and that was to Christian Cage. Has he lost any other matches? I mean, I'm sure he actually did lose to Moxley in that tag team match at Grand Slam Australia, so there was that. Which makes even less sense in retrospect if Moxley was always going to retain at, Revolution. I don't know. Makes no sense. Nathaniel said, I love the Edge and Seth feud in 2021. So did I. I was there for 2 of the 3 matches they had. Obviously, I was not there in Saudi Arabia, but I was there for the first match at SummerSlam 2021 and the MSG rematch on SmackDown a couple of weeks later, and both matches were excellent. That feud was probably like, and it has to be like the best feud that Edge had during his return run in WWE. Had to have been the best match that he had. It was excellent. Benji said, I had finally had a chance to drop by. Benji, it's great to see you, dude. Always good to see you on my timeline and now popping up in the chat. Hope you're doing well. Like I said, definitely check out Benji's content over on Twitch. He does a lot of streaming of game stuff. He's a big game guy, and he's very knowledgeable and very great with that stuff. So check out Benji's stuff when you guys have a chance. And he said, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you, Benji. And when that time comes, when I finally get to meet you in person, when we finally get to meet in person, it's going to be fantastic. So hopefully at some point, I think you're in the Texas area. I think we've talked about this before over DMs and shit. But the next time I find myself in that area, you will be one of the first people I hit up. You will be the first person I hit up. Absolutely. John had also said, on the movie front, Graham, once again, thrilled for you being a part of that Black Bag Q&A thing. I do have the new Looney Tunes, and a few others in the pipeline for reviewing 51 movies for 2025. Thank you, John. I appreciate you saying that. I forgot about that new Looney Tunes thing. Is that a new movie that's coming out? I honestly completely forgot about that. But there's plenty of other movies coming out. Curious what you think of Black Bag when that comes out in the next couple days. Out in theaters this Friday. So, yeah, I did tweet about the other day and put on Instagram and whatnot, but I was at the Black Bag press junket thing they did in New York City. That in and of itself is a whole separate video. Just crazy how that whole thing developed. But it was really cool. Got to talk to Michael Fassbender, Regé-Jean Page, and Marissa Abella about the movie. That interview should be up here on the channel at some point, so check that out. And check out the movie when it hits theaters this Friday. So they were great. That was the first in-person non-wrestling junket I think I've done, and I was very fucking nervous, but it ended up being a very cool experience. Nathaniel had said, I hope Swerve beats Jon Moxley. I don't hate Mox, but I'm just over the Death Rider story. I don't want to wait until All In. I'm sorry. None of us do. None of us want to wait until All In for this story to be over. Yeah, it's dying on the vine. I have said that before, but it is a story that is dying on the vine. It is indeed death. They are putting the death in Death Riders, and they got to wrap this up. I really hope Swerve wins at Revolution. I'm not convinced that he is. Daniel had said, speaking of over Ambrose, he was over, or speaking of over, Ambrose was over in the immediate aftermath of the Shield split. He absolutely was. When the Shield split, Ambrose was really, really over in the summer of 2014. But the biggest issue with Ambrose and his booking, they never really let him win. I think he lost to Rollins like 3 straight matches. They had a match on SummerSlam that he lost, which I was fine with. They had a match on Raw the next night, I think, that he lost again. And then he came back and lost at Hell in a Cell. And then he lost all of his matches to Bray Wyatt as well. The guy could not fucking win. And then he was involved in the IC title match at WrestleMania, lost that too. It's like, bro, give this guy a fucking win at some point. It's completely ridiculous. He just could not win a match to save his life for the longest time. And then, yeah, like Daniel said, then WWE just kept jobbing him out. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Fernando said, let me backtrack a little bit here. AEW is a lot of chats. Thank you. First of all, I'll get to all the chats. Thank you so much for everyone joining us and sending in chats and whatnot. I really appreciate it. If you're just joining, I'll be sure to like the video. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. But let's see. Fernando said earlier on, I think Braun Breaker would have gotten the jetpack strapped on his back if Cody and Punk not returned. Interesting answer. We'll get to that momentarily. Daniel said, given the Death Riders and that Rocky storyline with Punk, Mox has some mid ideas, LOL. Yeah, that whole thing they did with Punk where Moxley beat Punk in like a minute or two, a couple of minutes. He squashed the guy. He squashed the guy, and then they had a match at All Out anyway, which was really good. I didn't like that booking. And I've talked about it here on the channel before. When Punk lost to Moxley in like 3 minutes on Dynamite in Punk's first match back, I thought it was stupid. And then you got the belt right back at All Out anyway a week later. Why not just build towards the first match and do one? And you didn't have to do 2 matches in the span of 2 weeks. I thought that was very stupid. Let's see. Daniel had also said, a lot of that Mox hype back in the day in the Indies and FCW was also his promo work. Yeah, he's a great talker. It's just that the shit he's doing now, which seemingly he's doing all on his own, or was doing on his own at one point, just isn't good. It's just not good. Yeah, a lot of it was his promo work. He's not the greatest in-ring wrestler in the world, but if it is indeed his promo work, then where are those promos now? He's cutting a lot of meandering promos that don't really lead anywhere, don't really mean anything. It's kind of the problem. Fernando said Revolution was fire until that trash finish in the main event. Revolution was a great show. They were going, and then gone by the main event. The crowd did not care. Match was not good. And it's not even, like I said before, it's not even the finish to the main event. The main event itself was not good. It was not good. The finish was even worse. Tyreek joining us here today. Tyreek, hope you're doing well, dude. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate that. He said, didn't John Cena also say that he saw himself main eventing Manias with Ted DiBiase? Did he say that? I don't know. I don't know if Cena's ever said that before. If he did, I mean, I missed it, but how way off was John Cena in saying something like that? Main event. I mean, hey, listen, Ted DiBiase did technically main event. Or wait, no, I was gonna say, did Ted DiBiase not get involved in the Mania main event at 25 when it was Orton and Triple H? I don't think he was. I don't think the McMahons got involved. I don't think the rest of Legacy got involved. The one time where it probably would have made sense, he actually did not get involved. So no, Ted DiBiase never came close to even sniffing a WrestleMania main event. Tyreek also said, and Orton was only 30 in 2010. He definitely could have been the top face. Yeah, Orton obviously came into the company very young. I could see why they didn't make him the top face of the company in the mid 2000s when he had, broken off as a baby face post Evolution. That wasn't really working. I agree with that. He wasn't really interesting then, and he wasn't really ready for that spot then. But by 2010, Orton was more seasoned. He was incredibly more over. It was organic. It just worked, and they didn't pull the trigger. I mean, he was a babyface, but they didn't make him the face of the company because they, God forbid, had to ride Cena till the end there, so it just didn't work. No L said, would you say Cora Jade will be this generation's female version of Rey with... Okay, I see what you're saying here. Will Cora Jade be this generation's female version of Rey Mysterio with all of her leg injuries, or is it a stretch? A couple things here. First, when I first saw the first half of that chat, which is why I had to stop reading it for a second, I was going to say to you, in what fucking world is Cora Jade anywhere remotely similar to Rey Mysterio? Like, how does that even compute? But then I saw the rest of them, like, okay, that makes sense. So I apologize. Yeah, I don't think Cora Jade, did she injure her leg again? I heard it was a head thing. She mentioned her knee on Twitter. She said it was decent. What does that mean? Brother, I don't know. If she keeps injuring her knee or her leg, then yes. I don't think Cora Jade is the new Rey Mysterio. She's only had one ACL injury. When she was out before that, she was getting the implants put in, I think, so that's why she was gone before that. I don't think she's had multiple knee injuries. If she did get hurt last week with a knee injury, then yeah, it's been multiple. I think a more accurate comparison, and I'm a big fan of her, so I hate to say this, but Tegan Nox. Tegan Nox got her, or Dakota Kai. Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai hurt their knees, or legs, whatever, a lot. A lot of ACL injuries, specifically Tegan. She got hurt a fucking ton. And it's unfortunate because she's very talented. Rey Mysterio was able to overcome it, did the whole stem cell treatment thing, and obviously he's a legend, but Tegan Nox was unfortunately not able to overcome that because even when they brought her back post-knee injuries, she was injury-prone, but they could have pushed her anyway, and they didn't. Whatever. Average Grunt is joining us. Great, Grunt, great to see you in the chat. Thanks for joining us, dude. Hope you're doing well. He said, hey, Graham in chat. Be sure to say hi to Grunt in the chat, everyone. He said, currently out of the house, so I won't be here for long, but just wanted to pop in and say, hey, and also save us Swerve. I agree. Save us, Swerve Strickland, from this nonsense of the Death Riders. It's fucking terrible. Swerve, please save us. Fernando said, AEW is not looking good right now at the decision to not have Storm versus May not main event. It was the best story AEW ever told in the most anticipated match on the card. And there were a lot of anticipated matches on the card. Like, most of the matches on that show were excellent. I was really looking forward to that women's match, and they knocked it out of the park. Like, not the only time, but like one of the first times where I thought to myself, because AEW is a great men's division. Like, in NXT, they headline a lot of the shows with the women's matches because the men's division sucks. Like, it not sucks, but it's very depleted. Compared to the women, it's depleted. They called up a lot of people, just doesn't make sense. But there's opportunities for NXT to have the women main event. AEW, those opportunities are very few and far between because it's not often they book the women as well as they did with Tony and Mariah and come across a feud as well told and as hot as that feud. Like, when they had their first match at All In, that was never going to main event that show. Like, Danielson and Swerve was always going to be that main event that show as it should. They main evented Grand Slam Australia, but that wasn't a pay-per-view. I'm glad they main evented that show, but it wasn't a pay-per-view. This was a pay-per-view. They've never had the women main event a pay-per-view before. It took WWE, I get it, 50 years. I understand that. AEW could have done it in 5 or 6. With this match on this show, especially when your world title match isn't all that interesting, especially if that was going to be the finish with no new champion crowned, that really should have closed out the show. Grunt said, Revolution was just as epic as I thought it would, but then we got that main event. Still a top 5 AEW pay-per-view, though. I can't put it in the top 5. I think he asked, would it still be a top 5 AEW pay-per-view? Because you said would be a little bit later on. No. I think the overall show was great. I can't put it in the top 5 over like All Out 2021 is still the peak. But I don't know. I just feel like there were better shows that had an overall better package than Revolution. Like that meant like there were a lot of great match of the year contenders on that show on Saturday. And with a great main event, because the main event has a lot to do with people remembering a show for being as great as it is. If it had a better main event and a better finish, it probably would be top 5, but I cannot put it in the top 5. And it wasn't like it wasn't a good main event. It sucked. Everything about the last 30 minutes of that show, 30 plus minutes of that show, was not good at all. So it does not come close to being top 5 for me, especially when it has the worst pay-per-view main event probably in company history. But it was a very good show overall, though. I thought it was a very strong show. Nathaniel also said, I didn't like that Cage cashed in during the match. If he would have won, then I would have understood. Yeah, he didn't even win. And Christian does not have to be a world champion in 2025. I love Christian. Big Christian fan. Doesn't have to win a world championship in 2025. That being said, though, the way they executed the whole thing sucked. It's not good. Tyreek said thoughts on DeMar Lewis's comments. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name. Are you talking about the celebrity that was in the crowd at Revolution that made those like, oh, the whole winning comments about like breaking kayfabe and shit? If that's her name, if I mispronounced it, I apologize. Second of all, I had seen what she said. Honestly, when she first said it, I figured she meant something else. And sure enough, she did mean something else. If you watch the interviews why would you? But like, if you had seen some of the interviews I guess she was doing leading up to the release of the movie, she was saying that exact same thing. And what she meant by it was the wrestlers know that they're winners. Not literally, but they know that they're winners because they're tough. Like Camille talked about it. Camille was in the movie. She saw this woman doing press. She knows what she meant by that answer. The wrestlers know that they're winners before anyone else because the wrestlers are tough and they work hard, blah, blah, blah. That being said, the way that she worded her answer was not good. I know what she meant by it, kind of, but even the way that she worded it was not good or ideal. I don't know why she worded it that way because people took it as, oh, she's breaking kayfabe. That was not the intent. I don't even really know why she would say that. And I don't think she meant to say that. But the way she said it was confusing and it did not make sense. So it didn't really bother me. I think people are kind of making a bigger deal about it than it needs to be, especially if that's not what you meant to say. But I will say she should have worded it differently. I mean, she's not going to go on a 10-minute fucking promo in the middle of this show. I get that. But maybe say something else instead. Oh, what I learned was that wrestlers work really, really hard or something else. I don't know. Something fucking generic. Because what she meant to say didn't really, in the time that she had to say it, didn't really come out all that well. And people are still freaking out about it. Nathaniel had said Fernando. Are you talking to Fernando? Christian Cage's cash-in was dumber than the Austin Theory cash-in, Fernando said. Yeah, because at least this was for a world fucking title. Theory had the money. The Theory cash-in was bad. The Theory cash-in, to be fair, he cashed in on a mid-card title and still lost. The Christian cash-in might be slightly worse just because he did it during the match, not even after the match. I guess that would make the Theory match worse, or the Theory cash-in worse, because he did it afterward and still lost. I think the Theory one is still overall worse, but the Christian Cage one ended a pay-per-view, and he was also in possession of that contract for a lot longer. He had that contract for like 7 or 8 months, and he still fucking lost. Like, then what was the point? The Theory cash-in, he was only Mr. Money in the Bank for like 3 or 4 months. So it wasn't as bad in that sense, but it was worse in other respects. Richie is joining us saying, I'm late. Hello, everyone. Richie, first of all, say hi to Richie in the chat, everyone. Richie is here. Richie is great. Richie was at Raw last night. Looked like he had a great time, and he said he had a great time when he tweeted me back on Twitter today. He said he had a blast, so be sure to check out all the content he posted from the show last night. Had a lot of great pictures from where he was sitting, and it looked like it was a fun show to attend. So hope you're doing well, Richie, rather, and are recovering from Raw last night. Tyreek said, Edge took that double stack pin with D-Bry and said, never again. You think Roman's going to do that to Punk and Rollins at Mania this year when they have their triple threat? He's going to pin both Punk and Rollins in that triple threat? That same way? That would be crazy. Punk's going to be like, that doesn't work for me, brother. Benji said, going to be checking out WWE 2K25. Lots of content there soon, haha. Very cool. And he also said, sounds good, man. We definitely going to meet up soon for sure. Absolutely, dude. The next time I make my way over to Texas, and I like Texas the 2 times I've been there outside of the airport. I've been to Texas a few times if you include the airport. Without the airport, I've only been there twice. Dallas and San Antonio. Next time I'm there, I will totally hit you up. If it's close enough. I know Texas is huge. But yeah, 2K25. So actually on that note, I got a code for it actually yesterday. I have not plugged it in yet. I have not downloaded it yet. So I think the plan is at some point I do want to test out 2K25 here on the channel. I am busy this weekend, so I can't do it this weekend. Next weekend, there's a good chance. I know it releases Friday officially. A lot of people already have it. Hope you enjoy the game. I'll talk about my thoughts on the game and test it out here on the channel at some point in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. But also check out Benji's try-through of 2K25. That should be a lot of fun. Grunt said, like I said, the three-way portion of the match should have been longer. Christian's cash-in was the thing that finally got the crowd into the match. Yeah, if Christian had cashed in earlier, I mean, the match was 26 fucking minutes. Have either the match be shorter or have Christian cash in halfway through and then have that be the second half of the match. That would have made it more suspenseful and less irritating for the finish. It probably still would have been bad, but maybe not as bad because the overall match was very boring up until Christian came out, like you said. Let's see. Fernando said Swerve needs to be the one to take down Moxley, and Darby can just keep climbing mountains. I mean, Darby was the person to do it, but they're waiting until All In for Darby to beat Moxley. That doesn't work for me, brother. That doesn't work for me at all. That is way too fucking long. No thanks. No thanks. If honestly, at this point, just give the belt to Swerve. Seriously, like just put the belt on Swerve and be done with it. Hot take, and I said this on Twitter during the pay-per-view on Sunday, they should have never taken the belt off of Swerve in the first place. I know it was Danielson's idea, and we have Danielson to blame, by the way. I know it was Danielson's idea to drop the belt to Moxley. I didn't even agree with it then. I didn't agree with it even then. The finish that even that match sucked, and the overall match was very good, but I didn't agree with the finish to that match or the fact that they put the belt on Moxley. They should have either put the belt on Darby at that point, and I guess for a lot of people, they thought it was too soon. I get it. Maybe you could put the belt on Darby and then Christian cashes in and then Christian was champion for a few months. That would have been better than Jon Moxley as champion for as long as it's been. But back to my hot take, Swerve could have never lost the belt in the first place. He didn't even have to lose. You could have had him beat Danielson and retire Danielson at All In. Now, we would not have gotten that great moment with Danielson at All In. He would have retired right then and there. But who gives a shit? Who cares? They just keep the belt on Swerve, you know? At least we would have been spared 6 months of bad programming. Richie said, Tony Khan thinks Mox and the Death Riders is to AEW what Roman in the Bloodline was to WWE. Honestly, he must. It's not a bad comparison because of Tony Khan is now claiming that he has full creative control over what we're seeing on the shows. And, you know, he's the one booking all of this shit and whatnot. You know, if he's booking all of this shit and he thinks it was a good idea to do what they did to close out Revolution on Sunday, then he must think it's like a great angle. And now maybe he's waiting until Swerve can take the belt to Revolution, or rather Dynasty next month. I mean, we can only hope. I still think it's probably going to end up being Darby at All In. That is 4 months away. We are not waiting that long. So I do think he thinks a lot higher of this storyline, and everyone else involved probably thinks it's like cinema, when in reality it's just garbage. Nathaniel said, I think Cena is going to have a great heel run and win at 17. Fingers crossed. I still think there's a very real possibility that Cena loses and goes back to being babyface right after Mania. That would be fucking terrible. But you can't put it past WWE. There is a very real chance that happens. John said, nerves or not, you smashed it with the press thing. Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Going to be interesting to see how AEW follows up on Revolution since Dynasty is on April 6th, though they got to do something about Mercedes as champ. Yeah, they don't really have long until Dynasty at all. They're going to have to put a card together pretty quickly. Yet Mercedes, I really wish she had lost the belt to Chris Statlander. I mean, her matches this year have been good. She's having good matches. I don't know why she got almost 20 minutes for a match that did not fucking matter on Sunday. Who cares? I mean, they had a good match. People were praising that up the wahoo. I didn't give two fucks about Momo Watanabe and Mercedes. I thought it was a well-worked match. Cool, brother. I could watch any promotion at any point and get as good of a match, if not better, than what we saw on Sunday with Mercedes. Like, give me a story. Give me something I care to see. The Harley Cameron match I was more excited to see. That was not as good of a match, but had a better story that people were more invested in. And I thought that was well done. The Momo shit, who gives a fuck? Honestly, who cares? Mercedes, they should have taken the belt off of her when Chris Statlander faced her for the second time. Put the belt on Statlander or back on Willow. I don't agree with that Harley should have won it, but Mercedes' reign at this point, it's just not interesting. I don't think her character work is all that interesting. She's having good matches, but it's just not interesting. They got to move on at some point. And I really hope, as I've said before, they're not waiting to put the belt on whoever's next until like September, when she's going to break the record of Jade Cargill. We mentioned that in the Revolution live stream on Saturday, which, by the way, that was a total, impromptu thing. If you want to know when we're going live, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell button, be notified every single time we go live and every single time we upload a new video, like a random live stream on a Saturday. But I had said at that point, if they keep the belt in Mercedes until September, just to break the record and then have that be it, and then she loses it right afterward, that would be awful. So I really hope that's not the case. Daniel said, imagine 2014 Ambrose got AEW or AEW's Mox booking. Dude rarely loses these days. Honestly, he probably would have been WWE champion a lot sooner than he was. If they booked Moxley better, like if AEW was a thing 10 years ago, then I think we would be having a different conversation. Moxley was already great when he came to AEW in 2019, so I'm not saying they picked him up when he was washed. But like you said, he rarely loses now. So imagine if he rarely lost, like Roman Reigns back in 2014, 2015. He would have been a world champion a lot sooner than he was. Fernando said, Ava Raine would be perfect to add to the Death Rider storyline. She can give them some personality they badly need. Oh yeah, Ava, this fountain of charisma and personality, as we've said so many times before here on the streams. Ava Raine is the saving grace. She is is saving grace the right term to use? She is the beacon of light at the end of this tunnel. We need more Ava Raine. Ava versus Mox, Richie says. I could not even put in the words the opposite of whatever must-see television is. Anything involving the Death Riders and Ava Raine. Imagine like in an alternate universe where she's the authority figure over an AEW, booking the Death Riders on television. That would be the antithesis of change the channel type material for me personally. And Tyreek also said, the more Ava, the better. We're back on the Ava shit train now. Tyreek said, if Cody and Punk never came back, Ava would have been the face of the company. Hey, Tyreek said it. Tyreek said it himself. Richie said, Ava should take the place of Cena and dethrone Cody at Mania. Hey, just put all the fucking belts on her. Have her beat, who are the champions right now? Lyra, Chelsea, Tiffany, EO just won the belt. Give Ava all the championships. Daniel said that he saw this on Twitter. Edge versus Dean Ambrose main event featuring a failed Money in the Bank cash-in from Christian. Welcome back, Vince. Seriously, that sounds like a main event that we would have heard main eventing a WWE pay-per-view like 10 years ago. None of it, just in the match also was not good. Like, I would have been excited for an Edge Dean Ambrose feud 10 years ago. Not in 2025. And not with the booking that's accompanying it as well. The booking was better than maybe, but the finish was just awful. We're back on the Ava shit now. You guys are back on the Ava stuff. John said, nah, this Ava stuff has me dying, but honestly, I don't mind her as the NXT GM. John, you might be, I don't want to say you were one of the only ones, but Ava, I mean, I will say this to you guys right now. We went on this rant about a month ago here on the stream. Ava is so fucking bad, I cannot tell you. Like, literally now, I watch NXT Live solely to shit on Ava. I'm a terrible person, but she is so bad. She is just so bad. There is just no, I hear her speak, I see her, and I see no life behind the eyes. It's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. Like, it's just like, I could see the script. I could see the piece of paper that she is reading off of. And tonight, Fraxine will defend the NXT tag team. Like, it's just, it's bad. I feel like I'm the only one. Obviously, other people in the chat probably feel the same way, but Daniel said, Ava needs to dethrone Oba. She should. If she gets this much fan support, then maybe she should. Imagine if Ava had this fan support when she was actually wrestling. If people cared this much about Ava when she was wrestling a year or two ago, she would have been the fucking women's champion 3 times over. Nick said, Ava should just cut promos for every single person in NXT. I feel like that would really make the show that much better. Yeah, Ava's the one that knows how to cut promos, so if they could use Ava to cut everyone else's promos, then I think they'd be 10 times better for sure. God, she's just not good. Tyreek said, Theory, Christian, Sandow, 3 worst cash-ins. Yeah, I mean, the Braun Strowman one was also pretty bad because he cashed in and announced it ahead of time. No, Corbin was also bad. At least Sandow got a competitive match. Honestly, take Sandow out of that top 3. Theory's was bad. Corbin's was bad. He lost to Jinder fucking Mahal in like a minute and a half. The Christian one was bad just for the overall idea that Moxley retained because it sucked. The Braun one was also bad. I would take Sandow out of there. Sandow was never really going to be world champion anyway, probably. So in retrospect, it didn't really matter. But yeah, Theory, Christian, and I would say probably Corbin. But Braun Strowman's a very close number 4. He's a very close honorable mention. Richie also said, my ass is at work despite falling asleep around 3:34 a.m. for the love of the game. LOL. I don't blame you, Richie. When you really want to go to a show, you just you power through it. You go to bed late, wake up early. I know that feeling for sure. And it was worth it, I'm sure, because it was a fun show overall. Richie also said, glad I did not get tickets for NXT tonight. MSG 2 nights in a row would have been rough. Richie, you probably would have been dead. If you went to Raw last night, got back around 3:34, went to work today, went back to NXT tonight, and then back to work early tomorrow morning, you would probably be dead. And then, Richie, I don't want to see you die, so you probably made the right case. You probably made the right choice. Unless you live in New York City and it's very easy to get to these shows, you got to pick and choose. You can't go back and forth. I've done that before for SummerSlam years ago, and I almost killed myself. Like, not literally, but like it was bad. I was so tired by the end of that weekend. Nick also said, oh, speaking of Austin Theory, can anyone explain to me why they played Austin's music over Grayson? Grayson has his own music. Yeah, no, I agree. I think they did that because they were playing the A-Town Down Under music, and it's kind of merged. I don't think they were playing just Theory's theme. I think it was both of their themes. If I'm wrong and they were just playing Theory's theme, then I'm not really sure why. But I'm pretty sure it was the tag team theme. But even then, that doesn't really make sense. Just play Waller's own theme. He has his own song, like you said. Richie said, speaking of games, I still need to get that SVR ROM to you, Graham. I haven't forgotten. Thank you, Richie. I was going to actually hit you up about that. No rush on it, though. If it takes you like weeks to do it, don't worry about it. I've been getting more excited thinking about that, like playing SmackDown versus Raw here on the channel, playing it for my own, enjoyment on my computer. I can play it on my PS2. I fired up the PS2 last week. I mentioned that on the stream last week, and it still works. But I want to be able to play it on my computer with the ROM thing that you mentioned, because if I can, then that way I can stream it, I think. On the PS2, I can. Then I'd have to get a capture card. You said that wasn't the best idea. So at some point, I hope to do that. Fernando said, what if Punk gets booked to lose at Mania in the triple threat, the same way Christian lost the Revolution? Well, I mean, Punk isn't cashing in. I mean, I know he has a favor, but like, it's probably, if Punk isn't not having a match at the pay-per-view, then cashing in on his favor halfway through to get added, and then it gets pinned anyway. That would be awful. That would be terrible. I guarantee you that Punk will already have been involved in the match. Punk could get pinned. It's very possible Rollins is only in the match to get pinned, by the way. Very possible. I don't know who's going to get pinned or who's going to win. I mentioned that earlier. I'm just not sure. Grunt said, nah. Danielson winning the title was absolutely the right call. I will not have this. It's Moxley winning the title from Danielson. That was the mistake. Could have had Swerve win it back instead. Yes, I understand that. I agree with that. Danielson did not have to win that match at All In. I'm just going to be honest with you. He didn't. But because he did, it was a great moment. I agree. But you could have had Swerve win it back or Darby. Definitely not Moxley. That was a fucking waste of time. John Ritland said, got to balance, keep killing it, Graham. Make sure you get some sleep, though, because you've been going and going and going. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I will try. I've been able to catch up on some sleep in the last couple of days. The last Friday, Saturday, Sunday were extremely busy. This weekend is also busy. We have to go to a wedding on Sunday. I got a game to go to on Saturday. Thankfully, there's no pay-per-view this weekend. TNA has a pay-per-view on Friday night, so it's going to be another busy weekend, but, I'll try to catch up when I can. There's still a lot of stuff I got to catch up on. But thank you, John. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Hope you have a great day at work, and thank you for joining us as always, dude. I'll catch you on the flip side. Richie said, speaking of Mercedes, she's going to be in Queens this Saturday at House of Glory on the card. Very stacked show. I believe Zilla fought too, and Indy Hartwell too, considering getting a last-minute ticket. Yeah, I heard about that. That's also the same day that I haven't been to House of Glory, but it looks like a fun show. At some point, I'll probably have to check it out. I will not be at that show on Saturday. But that is the same day if you're interested in going to House of Glory. Just checking this out. The big event is also that day. I know, Richie, you know about the big event. We've talked about it before. They're doing the big event on Saturday that same day. So if you're interested in going to the House of Glory show, the big event, I think, is just that Saturday. I don't think it's all weekend. I think it's only one day. And you can go to the big event and also go to House of Glory later that night if you're interested in going to both. If you can go to both, there's a lot of big stars at the big event coming up on Saturday. Richie said Death Riders versus Four Roots, One Tree. No. Yeah. Hey, that might be the match that makes the most sense. Fernando said Ava was the one who helped Naomi take out Jade. She did it for The Rock? LOL. Yeah, no, I guess it. Imagine if it came out that Ava was the one who helped Naomi, and it was all in the Samoan bloodline. We get a new bloodline, but with the girls. Naomi, Tamina comes back. Ava. I love Naomi, but God, that faction would be fucking terrible. Whatever, I don't know. I doubt she's related to the other Samoans in the roster, but I had seen there was a Samoan girl on the LFG show. I don't know if she's related to the Fatus and whatnot and the Anawais, but if she is, I am more interested to see her on TV based on what I saw on Twitter than I am Tamina or Ava. They are both fucking terrible. I'm sure they're nice people, but they're both awful. Alexa said, popping back in the chat to say, why the fuck does John hate everything except for Ava being GM? That's a great question. That's a great question. Richie said Ava is God. Richie also said take classic WWE moments and replace a person with Ava. For starters, remember when Ava Rain body slammed Andre the Giant at WrestleMania? I do. Remember when Ava beat The Rock at WrestleMania 17 and aligned with Vince McMahon to become WWE champion? Or I can't even think of another one. It's just too ridiculous. But I plug Ava Rain into any classic WWE moment and and it would make it 10 times better, I'm sure, because Ava is awful. Kron said in all caps, hey, Alexis, Graham said that Danielson shouldn't have won the title. Punish him for me. Because I know you're a big Danielson guy, Grunt, but I'm not saying Danielson shouldn't have won. I'm just saying I would have preferred Swerve winning All In if it meant not losing the belt to Danielson, which probably, with my luck, would have happened anyway. Fernando said, what's the best wrestling video game that you've ever played? No Mercy. No Mercy, WWF No Mercy, probably. I would say probably WWF No Mercy or SmackDown vs. Raw 07, but only for the fact of the GM mode. Only for GM mode. I like the story mode and shit. I like SVR 07 in general. But I think the best game, I still go back to it. I played that game before I even became a fan. My grandmother had a copy of it because my cousin gave it to her, and I think she still has it in her basement. I don't know if it works at all. The fucking system's 25 years old, 30 years old, but we had No Mercy on that thing, and it was fucking awesome. And I still play it when I can. I haven't played it in a few years, but it's such a great game. No Mercy is a lot of fun. So probably No Mercy. And there's a few other games. I like the All-Stars game, SVR 07. Some of the 2K games are great. I would say probably the best game I've ever played, though, wrestling video game, No Mercy for the N64. And also WCW versus NWO Revenge. I also really like that game, too. That was also a great game. Millennial Noob said, I can already say that Liv and Raquel's run as women's tag team champions is off to an awful start. Why is Raquel Rodriguez challenging Lyra Valkyria for the women's IC title as a tag champion? Because they have no other teams right now. They have no other teams. So they just don't give a fuck about those tag team titles. They had a great match in the main event of Raw 2 weeks ago, and they already went back to not giving a shit about those belts. Not surprising. Richie said Ava, Naomi, and Tamina book it. Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, that stable, the Samoan bloodline is a very real possibility. I mean, it's not, but if we were to actually get that, that would be terrible. Mike has said, I saw that Samoan girl in a trailer. She is what Tamina should have been. Yeah, Tamina sucked. Tamina seems like a nice woman, but she was terrible. But Micah, great to see you in the chat. Hope you're doing well, dude. Thank you for joining us as always. Fernando said, can you see Ava trying to pull off the timeless gimmick, LOL? I mean, Ava is such an immaculate actress that she plays her role so well that she acts like she's reading off a piece of paper, when in reality, she's only doing that to play the role. She's actually such a great actress that she can do any role better than you can ever imagine. Like Nick said earlier a few weeks ago, I think this was about 3-4 weeks ago at this point, she is so great that she could play the credits of a Marvel movie. And that chat killed me here on the chat when he sent that in a couple of weeks ago. Alexis said, guys, who else do we not like? All-Star. Alicia Taylor, she is so bad. Yeah, I'm not a big Alicia Taylor fan either. Alexis and I have discussed this while we watch other like Raw and stuff. I think it just sounds forced. I thought Samantha Irvin was a lot better. I like Mike Rome more. I like Lillian Garcia a lot more. I'm just not an Alicia Taylor fan personally. She's been there for so long too. That's the weird thing. I guess she must be good enough to a point where she's been there for like 5 or 6 years. But I just feel like she's the weakest ring announcer they have by a pretty wide margin. Wow. Richie says, this might be controversial, but man, I find Bailey so incredibly boring. So, Richie, you were the one that was starting the wave last night during Bailey and Raquel. I kid, but um, yeah, no, Bailey currently right now doesn't have a whole lot going on, so her character's kind of like mid. That Raquel match, I mean, you were there, dude. That crowd sounded fucking quiet as hell. They were so quiet for that match last night. It was it was wild. It was wild. Just no one gave a shit. I know Raquel's not over, but Bailey feels so ice cold as well. The Roxanne feud helped, but like they kind of moved away from that. Roxanne wasn't there last night. Very weird. Micah also said, do you think it's Dom versus Finn? Loser leaves Judgment Day. They could. They could do that at Mania, but like, is that really a Mania match? I mean, honestly, I look at that and I think to myself, that sounds like a Raw match. Maybe if Finn goes back to being the demon and he still loses. I feel like Dom's going to beat Finn anyway. But is that really a Mania match? I feel like that'd be a pre-show match, but it's a possibility. I don't. That sounds like a bathroom break to me personally. I just don't really care at this point, but there's a good chance that we get it. Richie said, yeah, she can play the end credits. Might be the best comment of 2025. I think Nick's comment, yeah, about, it was also Micah too. Micah also said in that same chat, take 407 after we mentioned Ava reading her lines and calling her Groot and whatever. That was fucking funny. That was funny. And the only thing that beat it was Nick saying that she could play the end credits. I don't think I've laughed harder on a stream so far in any streams that we've done than that. So the bar has been set. Fernando said, Taylor sucks. I agree, Alexis. So, okay, Alexis is not the only one. And then she also said, to me, Alicia Taylor just sounds like a little girl trying to impersonate her dad yelling. I feel like a ring announcer should have a unique sound. I don't think she does, LOL. Alexis is starting a lot of hate here in the chat. Whether it's for Ava, I'm feeling the fire, but whether it's for Ava or Alicia Taylor, we are just shitting on these people. Just to no end. Why don't we talk about people that we like? You know what I mean? We're shitting on, and these are all women, by the way. The funniest thing that we're doing right now is that we're shitting on people that we don't like. We already mentioned Ava. Ava's awful. Alexis started the Alicia Taylor hate train, and then Richie mentioned Bailey, and I'm seeing Liv Morgan here too. These are all women. And even Alexis said, I know everyone knows I'm a Mercedes hater. We're just shitting on women during national, not even that. No, it's not a national thing. It's Women's History Month, right? Isn't it Women's History? It's Women's Month. I mean, every month is Women's Month. But like, it's International Women's Month or whatever it is, and we're shitting all over these women. Can we name a guy that we don't like? Just so it doesn't sound like we're being sexist here. I don't want to start on this trend that we're going to just shit on women and not any guys. we need to switch it up a little bit here. But anyway, Micah also said, GSM, who is an underrated WWE talent that you think deserves more credit from the fans and people in the back? I mean, I feel like the easy answer is Chad Gable. But Chad Gable is, a lot of people know how great Chad Gable is. So I feel like Chad Gable's probably not the smartest answer because everyone knows how great Chad Gable is. He doesn't get the respect he deserves from the people in the back because he's not pushed to that level that he probably should be. But Chad Gable, Giovanni Vinci was underrated. I mean, he's fired now, so it doesn't really matter. I'm trying to think of people that are underrated. The Machine Guns are great, but I feel like people know that the Machine Guns are great. Trying to think of who else. I'd have to look at the roster, to be honest with you. Finn Balor's past the point where I just don't even really give a shit. I don't know, man. LA Knight is, I guess, underrated by push means. I mean, we know how over he is, but he's not at the level that he should be. He's back to being United States champion, ending one of the most pointless United States championship runs in company history for Shinsuke Nakamura. Maybe Escobar? I feel like Escobar is a good answer. Escobar is great. He's a great talker. He's a great wrestler. But fans don't really give him the credit he deserves, and the company certainly doesn't either. He really hasn't done a whole lot since that Rey Mysterio feud ended. So I'm going to go Santos Escobar, probably. Yeah, Richie said during the Bailey-Raquel match, everyone was playing with their flashlights in the crowd too, LOL. Yeah, it's never a good sign. Alexis usually starts that trend. That trend. When we go to shows, Alexis will do the flashlight thing and then wait for someone to wave back with their flashlight on their phone from the other side. I try to tell her to not do that during matches that are actually good. She tried to do that during the Gunther-Sheamus match on Raw that we went to last May, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alexis. I'm pretty sure she did that during that match, and I was thinking, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this during this match? Watch the match, do it during a match that doesn't make as much sense. Anyway, Daniel said, for me, Liv Morgan does nothing for me. I like Liv Morgan a lot. I feel like she plays her role really well. The only thing I don't like about Liv, and I guess this is the point because she's a heel, that fucking laugh is just obnoxious. It's not as bad as not Martinez, Mercedes Monet's laugh, Sasha Banks' laugh. That laugh she was doing even as a babyface. That laugh is awful. I feel like Mercedes' laugh is way worse, but the Liv Morgan laugh, I think she does that in real life too. So God bless whoever she's with or whoever she's dating or whatever. Seems like a very nice girl, obviously very pretty and whatnot. The laugh is just, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Mercedes is worse, but Liv's is also very obnoxious. Richie said, I'd rather the crowd be quiet than act like assholes. I agree with that. Yeah, don't be chanting like mean shit and whatnot. I'd rather they be quiet. Honestly, if you're quiet, that sounds more of a message. That sends more of a message that the match or whatever is not working. So I agree with that. Micah said, okay, so Micah threw in a guy here, so it's not just us shitting on women. Micah said, it's Byron Saxton for me. That guy can do anything WWE needs him to do, and he's great at it. He might go to Hollywood after this. Oh, wait. Wait, hold on a second. Wait. Wait a second. I read what. Hold on a second. Micah, you got me in the first half. I'm not going to lie. I read that chat thinking that you were answering the question about who you don't give a fuck about. Are you being sarcastic or are you serious? I'm going to read that again. It's Byron Saxton for me. That guy can do anything WWE needs him to do, and he's great at it. He might go to Hollywood after this WWE run. Are you talking about people that we don't like, or are you talking about people that are underrated? Answering your own question. I'm honestly genuinely confused as to what you mean by that comment. I actually don't mind Byron Saxton, but he's certainly not underrated. I won't go that far. I'll take that back if you meant that as a joke. But if you meant that as an underrated talent, then that was funny that I thought you were talking about shitting on him because I thought that's what you meant. Daniel said Alicia Taylor sounds so unenthusiastic compared to Samantha. Yeah, she just sounds like a typical WWE bot, like ring announcer bot. They've had a lot of ring announcers over the years. They just didn't sound like they had any passion. They were just like reading off like a cue card. She's not as bad. Alicia Taylor's better, but you know who was always a bad ring announcer? And again, I hate the shit on like the women specifically. Brandy Rhodes. Brandy Rhodes as a ring announcer was just not good. She was probably a better ring announcer than she was a wrestler. As a wrestler, she was terrible. But as a ring announcer, she wasn't much better. Fernando said, Eva should replace Taylor and add some excitement to the position. Not a bad idea. Alexis said earlier, Liv Morgan annoys me a little bit. Nick Soda also said, thank you. When I complimented him on setting the bar as far as shit that has made me laugh here on that stream, on these streams. Daniel said, Alexis, I'm on the same page with you, Mercedes/Liv, LOL. Mercedes is more annoying to me than Liv. Mercedes, it feels like she's just been playing the same role for like fucking 5-10 years. At least Liv has switched it up. Her as a heel has been great. I feel like whether she's a babyface or a heel, Mercedes has been the same character, Mercedes or Sasha, doesn't matter, for like 5 to 10 years. And her promos are also not good either. I think she's amazing in the ring. She's one of the best in either company. She's very good. But she also came up at a point where she was better than most of the women they had. Now, at this point in both companies, we have a lot of women that can go that are also better on the mic that we aren't seeing as much as Mercedes. So I'm not going to say she's overrated because I don't think she is. But, you know, with Mercedes, I don't see the hype as much as some people do. I think she's a great fit for AEW, but like the push that she's getting isn't really warranted. I'd rather see someone else in that spot or see her do something else that would be more interesting. Tyreek said, Bayley seems to have regressed in the ring. Interesting. I don't know if she's regressed. I mean, honestly, I feel like you could say the same thing for Sasha, but Sasha Mercedes has had some great matches recently, so I don't know if she's regressed necessarily. On the mic, she has. Bayley in the ring, interesting. I won't agree or disagree, but that is an interesting opinion. Boog Screw said Grayson Waller needs a chance every time he's been given a mic. He steps up. Dude is way more complete than Theory. Yeah, I agree. I like Theory. Theory would need to leave the company in order to be really fully rehabbed booking wise. Waller is like a modern day Miz. Miz at this point, I love the guy. I don't give a fuck any single time he comes on the show. Anytime he comes on, I don't give a fuck. But Grayson Waller, I feel like could play that role better, but he's stuck doing this tag team nonsense, so it just hasn't really clicked so far. Tyreek said she doesn't move the same. Oh, talking about Bayley. Interesting. You also said Motor City Machine Guns are the Motor City mid-sheen guns in WWE. I disagree. I feel like they've had a good run so far. They were tag team champions for a little bit. They're constantly on the show. It's not like they're not being featured. They're having quality matches, fun matches. The booking is kind of the blame. I don't really feel. I mean, they're also later on in their careers. This is not the same Motor City Machine Guns of even 5-10 years ago. But I feel like for the role they were given, they've done very well. So I disagree on that one. Richie said, you know who else are butt cheeks? Pretty Deadly. Oof. Do not say that to Nick. I like Pretty Deadly. Nick, I know, really likes Pretty Deadly as well. Nick might have some fighting words to say about that. Daniel said, Chad Gable saying gracias last night under the mask took me out. Yeah, that was really funny. I didn't even catch it. I thought he said thank you. I just saw him do this, so I thought he said thank you. But when I heard after the fact that he said gracias, that's really funny. Grunt said, if or when Swerve beats Mox for the title, please, Swerve, please. What do you see for Mox at All In? I think it'll be Texas Death with either Cope or Kingston. Who, Eddie Kingston? Yeah, maybe. I guess that's possible. I really don't care about Mox and Eddie Kingston running it back again. Cope, that would be fucking boring. Honestly, I see him facing probably Darby because they have yet to finish that. Darby has yet to beat, I think, Moxley in a one-on-one match. Has he not? I don't think Darby's ever beaten John Moxley before in a one-on-one match. So I think he should face Moxley at All In. Whether it's for the championship or not, hopefully not, because I hope Swerve wins the belt back at Dynasty. I would probably do Cope and, or rather Allen and Moxley. Richie said Shinsuke, call them washed. Not a bad idea. Not a bad. I don't disagree with that. Shinsuke is definitely washed. His repackaging is cool. His entrance is awesome. But when that bell rings, I just find it hard to care. And I know I'm not the only one, because when that bell rang on Friday SmackDown for that United States Championship match against LA Knight, that crowd sounded like they did not give a shit. Richie also said, nah, Escobar could be really good if they invested some stock into him. His stuff in NXT was good. I agree. They just haven't really invested all that much into him. He turned on Ray, got great heat for that, and then they immediately just kind of downplayed it and never really followed up on it, and then we never really got a proper Ray Santos blow-off. They had a couple TV matches, which were good, but never really, great, or they never really blew it off on a pay-per-view. That was disappointing. I would like to see them do more with Escobar, for sure. Grunt said, also, we've been poo-pooing Mox and the Death Riders a lot, so I think that balances out all the women hate. That's a good point. That's a good point. I shit on the Death Riders a lot on these streams, so I feel like shitting on Mox definitely balances out some of the hate for the women, so that is true. Tyreek said, Gunther is world champion. Snooze. Honestly, you're not entirely wrong. I think Gunther's had a good run, but he's never really been positioned as the face of Raw. He never closes out Raw. It's always he feels like he's still Intercontinental Champion working with mid-level guys and never at that world title level, and his reign's probably ending at WrestleMania. I'm glad he's walking into Mania as World Heavyweight Champion. I think that's cool. But, yeah, they haven't really positioned him as the top guy on that show. Daniel said, at least Liv doesn't seem to like the smell of her own feces in real life like Mercedes seems to. That I agree with. I said that on the stream a couple days ago. I am not a big Mercedes fan. She seems like she likes the smell of her own farts a lot more than Liv does. Liv seems a lot more humble and nice and down to earth. Mercedes, maybe she's a sweetheart. I just don't get that sense. Not saying it's fact, but Mercedes seems like she thinks that she's the greatest women's wrestler alive, and she's far from it. Fernando said Liv is over, and she buys into a lot of her own hype, I feel like, with Mercedes. But yeah, Fernando said Liv is over mostly for her looks. She's very mediocre in the ring. I disagree with that. I think Liv has improved a lot. I think that was evident in that tag team title match on Raw a couple of weeks ago. I feel like she's had a lot more breakout performances. She's much better on the mic now than she used to be, and as a character than she used to be. In the ring, she's also improved a lot. So, I mean, she's not great in the ring, but she's had some really strong performances. See Elimination Chamber. Look no further than Elimination Chamber. She was the MVP of that women's chamber a few weeks ago. Micah said he was serious. He said, no, I'm serious. It was for my who is underrated. That is funny. Micah, you're killing me. I think Byron is the definition of mid. He's got good energy. He is definitely not Hollywood material. I'll tell you that right now. I'm glad you like Byron Saxton. He seems like the nicest guy on the show. He did stink as a wrestler, Tyreek. I agree with that. Richie said, and the Academy Award goes to Byron Saxton. The Rock called him Brian by accident at that press conference a couple weeks ago. That was funny. Richie said, I will say Byron's emotional call on commentary during Bryan versus Kingston was legendary. I forgot he was on commentary for that. I totally forgot about that. I was at that show in attendance, so I didn't actually hear the commentary when it happened, but I forgot about that. Probably the best call of his career, and it's not even close. Micah said, Byron Saxton's ring announcing all Saudi Arabia, or rather at Saudi Arabia in 2023 was great, way better than Alicia Taylor. I will say that Byron Saxton, don't love him as a commentator. He is a better ring announcer than Alicia Taylor. I'm not really sure why they don't just put him in that role. Maybe they want more women, but like Lillian Garcia is there, so I mean, I feel like I don't know. I'm not really sure why Alicia Taylor does Raw over like Mike Rome or Garcia, who messes up a lot, but I like Lillian Garcia a lot more than personally, a lot more than Alicia Taylor. And Byron Saxton as well. Daniel said, put some respect on Brandy GSM. Who told you this was open mic night, bitch? Dude, that moment was legendary. That still lives rent-free in my head 5 years later. That segment with Jade Cargill. We need Cody and Jade working with each other on some sort of feud so Brandy can interrupt Jade Cargill. That's what we need to see. Some sort of like mixed tag with like Shaq coming back with Jade Cargill, and what a train wreck that would be in WWE in 2025. Daniel Malcolm said, or I already read that one. Tyreek said, Mercedes and Swerve allegedly, huh? They also had the same hair on Sunday. I've seen rumors about that. I have no idea. That's the first time I've seen anyone say anything about Mercedes and Swerve Strickland being together. Mercedes is not married. She obviously got the divorce last summer. I know she's made that clear. Swerve, I think, is married or has a girlfriend or something. So I don't want to start putting rumors out there that they're together. I think if they were hiding their relationship, they would not have had the same hair color on Sunday. I feel like that would have been incredibly fucking dumb if you're trying to hide your relationship and then coloring your hair the same. If they are together, more power to them. I don't think they are, though, so I don't want to start up rumors, especially when Swerve is probably either married or has a girlfriend or something like that. Or maybe not. Who knows? So I don't want to fuel too much into those rumors. I don't want to feed too much into those rumors if they're not true, so who knows? Fernando said, Ava Taylor and Brandy in a heel faction, they can be called charisma. Oh, yeah. They have just so much charisma. Do all three of those people. Micah said, did you hear that WWE is bringing Evolution 2 this year on July 5th? Can you book me a main event match, a middle main event, and a great opener to get the crowd excited? It's a good question. Yes, I did hear about Evolution 2. We'll talk more about it on Thursday's Wrestle Rant Radio. I think it's going to be Mohegan Sun. That was the rumor that it might be July 5th or whatever at Mohegan Sun, which is fucking cool. Because I would love to be at that show here in Connecticut. I would love to go. I did not go to Evolution 1. I almost did. It was in New York. I decided against it last minute. We went to a signing or something instead the day before, so we didn't want to go to New York back and forth 2 days in a row. But I would love to go to the second one if they do indeed do it here in Connecticut. It depends what the roster looks like by the summer to be booking like a main event and a middle main event and whatever. But if you really want to load up the show, like Becky Lynch, if she's back by then, hopefully she is. Becky versus AJ Lee, I feel like would be perfect based on but the Punk and Rollins Hate Alone or a mixed tag. I mean, if it's an all-women show, then I guess a mixed tag wouldn't make sense. But Becky and AJ would be cool, or Becky and Lyra if we're not getting into WrestleMania, which at this point doesn't look like we are. I don't know if Bayley and Roxanne will still be feuding by that point. Yeah, I'm trying to think what a card would like. Maybe Charlotte and Tiffany, the WrestleMania rematch. I feel like what we're getting now is only the beginning. So maybe Tiffany and Charlotte in a stipulation match. Rhea Ripley versus Bianca. Maybe they do the singles match there between the two. You can bring back Trish, do Trish and Trish she already worked at Elimination Chamber, so she could wrestle again at Evolution. Who would Trish face though? Trish and Bayley maybe? We've never seen that before. Trish and Tiffany would be cool. A couple different options there. Depends what the roster and what the landscape looks like by that point. Alexis said, also back on the hate train, I do not like Ricochet. He is so vanilla. He is better in AEW, but still. I like Ricochet. He is much better in AEW. He's been a very good heel. I feel like, I'll go back. I'm reading some of these comments. Tyreek, I did not know that. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Ricochet I feel like is a lot better as a heel. He was very boring in WWE towards the end there, but I do like Ricochet. I feel like in the ring he's great. And he's finally getting a chance to show in AEW what he should have been doing in WWE. Although I'm not sure it would have worked. Mikey said he likes Ricochet. Daniel said Eddie Burger Kingston might be my least favorite wrestler of all time. Well, shit on Eddie Kingston. I love Eddie Kingston. I think he's very good. I feel like he's also has that realness about him and that genuineness that a lot of the roster on any roster does not have. So for that reason alone, big Eddie Kingston fan. Matthew Rodriguez said, hey, Graham, tomorrow let's do the podcast, but card subject to change. We are going to do 2 recordings, if you don't mind, one being a fantasy booking podcast and the other one for Patreon, a watch-along. Not a bad idea. I'm game. Just hit me up, Matthew, via the DMs or whatever. We were talking over DMs a couple days ago. Looking forward to doing your podcast tomorrow. Tyreek said, I could never be a Gunther fan after all those racist rants from way back in the day. I did not know those existed. That's a real thing that's disappointing. Is that like a character thing, or did he make racist comments in real life? Because I've never heard of that before. Fernando said, Gunther is not the problem. I think having 2 world championships was always a huge mistake. The championship not held by Cody was always going to feel secondary no matter what they do. I disagree. I feel like when Rollins held the championship, it was the top prize on Raw, and they made it feel like a big deal, especially when Roman was not around. But it's the booking of Gunther. I don't think 2 world titles is the issue. When you have a roster as deep as they do, they kind of need 2 world titles, especially when you have a brand split, quote-unquote, for Raw and for SmackDown. I think 2 world titles is the answer. It's just they need to book Gunther at a higher level on the show. Because if we don't have 2 world titles, people will be complaining, oh, why isn't Gunther in the world title picture? And then it's like, you can never win with people. I feel like 2 world titles is fine. You just need to book the second one to be more important. That's the bigger issue. Micah said, what did you think of the Andrew Schultz segment last night, and have you seen his stand-up on Netflix? I watched 20 minutes, and from what I saw, it was funny. Way better than fluffy. I don't really watch a lot of stand-up comedy. I just feel like a lot of it isn't funny. But no, I have not seen it. I didn't even know who he was. Dylan, who we watched the show with, actually knows who he is and said that he enjoys his comedy work. I haven't seen any of his stuff. I thought the segment was fine, though. It would have been cool if they used Macaulay Culkin in that spot. That would have been way better. If they had him in the ring doing shit and taking a beating from Logan Paul before AJ came out, that would have been a much better segment. This Andrew Schultz guy, who gives a fuck? But because Culkin's probably not in a Netflix movie or a Netflix show, that's probably why he didn't get utilized in that spot. But he should have, because he's a lot more over, a lot more people like him compared to, I would think, Andrew Schultz. He was obviously got a fan following, but Culkin got the biggest reaction of any celebrity in that show by a pretty wide margin. Fernando said Swerve is engaged. Well, there you go. Don't want to spread rumors about this guy cheating on his fiance if he's engaged. That probably would not be a wise thing to do. And Micah also said Fluffy is bad. Daniel said it's hilarious seeing Macaulay Culkin, or Cullen, you said, continuously getting bigger pops than most of the roster. Put him on the show. Put him in an angle is what I say. Micah said bring Mickie James versus Roxanne Perez. Trish always gets the spotlight. I would love to see that. Mickie versus Roxanne would be awesome. Probably a better match, too. I like that a lot. Get Mickie on the show, though, I agree. Especially if they're booting her off LFG for the second season, which is fucking stupid. Fernando said Trish versus Chelsea for the U.S. Women's Championship at Mania. At this point at Mania, probably not. I just don't see Chelsea getting a spot on the show. It's possible. I wouldn't mind it. I just don't see it happening. Do we really need Trish Stratus in another WrestleMania match when there's other women that should get that spot instead? I would much rather see Bayley versus Roxanne at Mania over Trish and Chelsea in Mania. Just my opinion. We also don't know where Nikki Bella is. I thought Nikki Bella was coming back for a full-on run. We haven't seen her since the Rumble. I'm not complaining, but just thought I would bring that up. Micah said, we never got a payoff from Lita turning on Trish and Becky after Mania 39. I mean, we did with No, Lita never turned on Trish. Trish turned on Lita and Becky. Lita got hurt. She got attacked backstage by Trish, we later found out. We never got... honestly, one more Trish and Lita match, I don't know how good it would be, but for nostalgia's sake, that might be fun. At least one more time, because you're right, we never got Lita coming back to get a revenge. I don't think we've seen her on the show since. So there was no payoff to that part of it. Micah also said Zelina Vega versus Chelsea Green for the United States Championship, and the loser leaves America. Interesting. Not an awful idea. Not an awful idea. The match itself, the loser leaves America is probably not going to happen. But the match itself, not a bad idea. For Mania, it's not going to happen. But on SmackDown at some point, I wouldn't mind that. That's even less of a Mania-worthy match than Trish and Chelsea. Daniel said Cena and Batista never felt inferior to one another when they were both world champions. That's what I'm saying. I feel like if you book the world titles properly and equally, then you can have 2 world championships that make sense. Like in 2005, like you said, when Cena was WWE champion, Batista was world heavyweight champion. And this was the case in 06, 07, probably up until like 08. The 2 top titles felt equal to one another. It wasn't really until like 09 when you put the belt on fucking Big Show and Jack Swagger, and the belts at that point just did not matter. At that point, the belts were a joke. Like when you had Mark Henry hold the championship, that was cool. That made for a great moment. But there were a lot of points where that World Heavyweight Championship did not feel important at all. And I would say probably 08, 09 onward was when the belt started to take a dip in terms of how it was portrayed and felt important or not as important as the opposite championship on the opposite show. Grunt said, just want to say that while people, no one here necessarily, are accusing Cope of politicking, I want to throw out the possibility that it's Tony's doing and Cope wants to put more people over. Maybe, but at the same time, though, I'm not saying Cope is a politician by any means. Maybe it is Tony's doing. But Cope also did not lose to a lot of people in WWE. Let's just point that out as well. During his time in WWE, he lost to Randy Orton. Who the fuck? I mean, did he really need that rub? No. He lost to Roman a few times, which was good. He lost a little bit more than he should have in that first year or so. And he lost to Rollins in the rematch, although I don't think he got pinned. I think it was a referee stoppage. He lost to Finn Balor in that I Quit match, but he really should have lost to Balor at WrestleMania. He should not have lost that match. Yeah, Edge, I don't know. He lost more in WWE. He was also there for longer during this return run. Edge talks a lot about, elevating new talent. He really hasn't elevated anyone since he's been back in AEW. Maybe he wants to elevate new people, but he kind of buried Ricky Starks in that verbal exchange about a year and a half ago. Ricky isn't even with the company anymore. He should have lost to Malachi Black at Double or Nothing last year, and he didn't. Maybe because Malachi was always on his way out, and that's why they didn't want him to put him over. I don't entirely blame Cope. I'm just saying that it is weird that they even wanted to protect Cope. Like you would think if he has some say that he would be like, no, just have Moxley pin me. You don't need to have Christian get involved and pin Christian instead. Who cares? Why are we building towards a Cope-Moxley rematch when it's just not necessary? When the first time it wasn't that good, did we really need it the second time? The answer is no. Fernando said, I like Eddie Kingston, but the problem is he looks like my mechanic, LOL. Yeah, I feel like John Moxley also gets that quite a bit as well. Grunts, you could say the same thing about Kevin Owens, so if you say the same thing about Kevin Owens, then yeah, that makes sense. But I just, if someone's very good, then it's hard to disagree with that. Grunt said, just so we're not completely painting Cope as Hogan 2.0, because he seems like a decent guy overall. I think he is. I don't want to completely shit on Cope. I'm also just saying that I don't think he needs to be main eventing pay-per-views in 2025, especially if that match was going to be as boring as it was. If the match was better, then maybe. But the feud has not been interesting, and I think the match made sense because you want to feed people to Moxley, but the match was not good at all. So I'm not completely blaming Cope as far as he's not putting people over. We just don't know. You're correct. We do not know that. I do feel like a lot of the blame falls on Tony Khan, but we just don't know for a fact. Tariq said, Taker getting his wife more preferential treatment, shake my head. Yeah. I like Michelle McCool, glad she's going into the Hall of Fame, but if they wanted to recast Mickey, then take Taker off the show. I guess it was really important for them to get Taker on the show. I get it. It's the fucking Undertaker. But take Taker off the show as well and put someone else in his spot. I don't really think that's fair to Mickey if she was the only one recasted. You really need fucking Bubba Ray Dudley on the show? Honestly, I know they all play. They're like Booker T. Take Booker T off the show. Put him, so it doesn't look sketchy that they're only getting rid of Mickey. They only literally recast Mickey. That is very shitty. Lita was moving in slow motion in those last few matches. Yeah, she still looked great, though. Yeah, Lita still looked great. She's not going to go in there and have a great match. Let's put it that way. At this point. She did with Becky Lynch, though. I thought she and Becky had an excellent match at Elimination Chamber 2022. That was the last really great match that she had, and that probably should have been her retirement match. But it is cool that she and Becky got to hold the women's tag titles, albeit briefly, back in early 2023. I thought that was pretty cool. Fernando said Macaulay Culkin versus Eva at Mania the Rock, special guest ref. Book it. Culkin wins, though. Culkin's going to win that match. Tariq said Jack Swagger is world champ. Boy, we were down bad. That is how fucking bad the product was in 2010. We were getting Swagger versus Big Show for the World Heavyweight Championship at Over the Limit 2010. Again, if you ever think the product isn't really clicking for you right now, always go back to that period because it could always be a lot worse. Let me tell you that much. Mike has said, does Roman versus Seth versus Punk need a stipulation because just a standard grudge match, trope triple threat, or just a grudge triple threat doesn't excite me, honestly. Stipulation, maybe, but what would it be? You know, all triple threats are no DQ by nature, so we just saw a steel cage match. He also said, I think it should be a winner faces Cena or Cody at Backlash. Yeah, that could work. Make it a number one contenders match. It won't main event, but I think that could work. A regular grudge match, it doesn't need a stipulation because they all have hatred for each other at this point, coming off of what we saw last night. So it's not like mandatory, but that would make it slightly more interesting, I agree. Micah also said, are there any other video games that you are interested in buying besides 2K25? There is this Split Fiction game I'm hearing that was released. It's a co-op game. People keep giving it great reviews. Not really. I was just about to mention that Alexis is much more of a gamer than I am, so you should give her the recommendation. He also said it's got a main event night one. It probably won't. It's probably going to be the women's match or Gunther and Jay. I don't think you do Roman, Seth, and Punk. I think it would be a great main event, but without a stipulation, is it really the main event? I don't know. It would be cool for Punk to get a main event finally, but I don't know if it will main event. But anyway, Alexis mentioned about the game. She said, I heard about Split Fiction. I want Graham to play co-op games, but with me on the regular. But sadly, he is not as much of a gamer as me. It depends on the game. A lot of the games I find pretty boring. It's got to be something that I find very interesting. I'm just not a gamer. It's got to be something that very much interests me to keep me paying attention. Just killing time, walking around and shit is fucking boring to me. If she buys the game, I'll try games. Like we tried the Guardians game. We tried games together before. It's just that I can't sit there and commit fucking hours upon hours upon hours to a game that just doesn't overly interest me, unless it's like a Star Wars game or something. He did say you guys should try the Split Fiction game. It's great to bond over with your significant other. If Alexis gets the game, I will try it. Let's put it that way. It's not much of a gamer, but I did get 2K25. I got a code for it, and I'm going to plug it in later today, I think, or tomorrow, and I'll give it a shot and see if I like it. So we'll give it some. I'll give it my review at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, the Split Fiction thing, Alexis will have to get it, and I would have to try it with her. But I appreciate the recommendation, though. All right. With all that being said, as we surpass the hour-and-a-half mark here on the stream, we're going to start answering the questions that were sent in ahead of time before we get back to the chat. So I'll go through a couple questions here, and then we'll get back to the chat. So if you have any other questions you want me to answer in the chat, be sure to drop it in the chat, and we'll get back to it a little bit later on. Micah did say I got to go get Star Wars Battlefront 2. I want to do the campaign. I played the original or the newer Battlefronts, and those were fine. I like the original Battlefronts a lot more. That is a game I could play consistently. I fucking love Battlefront, so I will say that. Anyway, back to the scheduled questions here. Micah, actually, speaking of which, he did send in a question ahead of time. The headline question for this video: who do you think would have been WWE's top guy if Cody Rhodes and CM Punk did not return to WWE? I love this question so much because it's one of the big what ifs, and some of you guys already sent in your comments in the chat. I actually have a different answer than all of you as far as who I think would have been the face of WWE had Cody and Punk not come back. My answer, here's what I think would have happened. Roman's long run, whoever beat him, was going to be like the top babyface in the company. Honestly, if Cody does not come back, I think it would have been Drew. I think Drew McIntyre would have beaten Roman Reigns probably at Clash of the Castle 2022. Roman would not have been champion for 4 years, and Drew would have won. Now, does that mean that Drew would never have turned heel? Probably, I feel like he would have. I think Triple H would have turned him at some point. I feel like it would not have happened when it did, though. I feel like when he turned heel, it made sense because he had lost a lot, and, he blamed the Bloodline for it after they cost him the championship. He can't turn heel and blame the Bloodline if they don't cost him the championship. So I think when everyone thought Roman would lose, that's probably when he was going to lose. Was the Drew McIntyre Clash at the Castle. So that's not exactly my full answer though. So if Cody doesn't come back, if Punk doesn't come back, I think Drew beats Roman for the championship. And then I think Drew's reign goes okay. It doesn't exactly land as well as I think they were hoping. He maybe gets boring in the role because he's been babyface for a few years. They have to turn him heel. So I think when Roman drops the belt, he ultimately goes babyface anyway. We get the whole bloodline split, but we get it sooner than we did. We would have gotten it a couple of years ago compared to 2020, late 2024, 2025. We get the bloodline split. Roman Reigns goes back to being a babyface. Drew eventually goes heel. And as other people have said, I think Braun Breaker would have gotten the call up quicker than he did, and Braun Breaker would have been a top babyface on the show. Would he have been ready for that spot 2 years ago? I don't think he would have. 2 years ago, maybe. 3 years ago, no. 2 years ago, probably. I feel like he would have gotten the call up in 2023. He would have lost the belt to Carmelo Hayes, get called up in early 2023, and then he goes on to become like the new guy. So I think Braun Breaker would have been the guy ultimately. I feel like Drew would have been the one to beat Roman for the belt, and Roman would have gone babyface anyway because people would have been cheering him, and he would have been doing a great job in the heel role to the point where people would have turned him babyface. So maybe they do a double turn with Drew and Roman, maybe not necessarily with each other, but I feel like they would have been in separate stories. You turn Drew heel at some point, maybe not when they did in late 2023. It probably would have been later, but Roman goes babyface earlier than he did, and Braun Breaker ends up higher on the card than he is right now because they probably would have wanted to thrust him into that top spot. If Roman's not the babyface of the company because he's not full-time and Drew goes heel, they needed someone in that spot. It probably would have been Breaker. LA Knight, I just don't see them putting like the entire company behind him as being the guy. I think he could. I don't really think they see him in that light. I think it would have been Braun Breaker a lot sooner than what we're getting right now. So I think that's a great question, though. A lot of great what ifs. Micah also asked, Triple H gave Travis Scott the new version of the hardcore title. There are also rumors that say Scott is training to have a match. I'm predicting someone will call him out and ask what the belt he has is, leading to a match at SummerSlam this year. It's 2 nights, so my question is, who should call him out for a hardcore match? I was thinking Shane McMahon to make up for what happened to WrestleMania 39. What about you? Micah, I love you. I know you're here right now. I fucking hate that idea. Travis Scott does not need a hardcore match at WrestleMania. If Travis Scott is training, it could just be to take a bump. I really do not need to see Travis Scott wrestling unless he's Bad Bunny in the ring, which I was also skeptical of when they did that. I'm like, who the fuck is Bad Bunny? Who gives a shit? And then he went in there and had a great match in Mania 37, and he's had other good matches since and other good showings. If he's not going to go in there and do that sort of shit, then I just don't care, personally. I know Travis Scott's a big name, but you can have him train to wrestle and just take a bump. He could take a bump and not necessarily have to have a full-length match. I just feel like that makes more sense. The worst part of that idea that you proposed is Shane McMahon wrestling Travis Scott. That would be fucking terrible. In 2025, that sounds atrocious. I feel like we should be off of the Shane McMahon wrestling bandwagon. He should not have even have competed at WrestleMania 39 when he got hurt. He should not have been in the Rumble in 2022 and lasted as long as he did. I didn't care about the Braun Strowman match that he had at Mania in 2021. He didn't wrestle in 2020 at Mania, or at all, I don't think, that year. That Miz feud in 2019, when he had that whole feud with Miz should have beaten him and he didn't. That was awful. But then he feuded with Kevin Owens. And then, again, they actually feuded initially in 2017. They had a whole feud in 2019. If Kevin Owens beats Shane to fire him from WWE or whatever that storyline was, that should have been it for Shane in the ring. But instead, they brought him back a whole bunch of times after that, and it was terrible. So no, Shane and Travis Scott, absolutely not. I don't really care about them doing a hardcore title again at this point. It wouldn't work. We got that with the 24/7 championship, and it was ass. So no, nothing about that idea I like. Please keep Travis Scott off the show, especially after he almost legitimately injured Cody. No thanks. Jordan B said on YouTube, what improvements do 2K need to make for future WWE 2K games? I'm not the best person to ask about that because I'm not a hardcore gamer. I'll play the games as a casual fan, and I really enjoy the 2K games personally. I feel like there's always improvements they can make. I think the roster is top notch. The roster is incredible. The graphics I really like, and I'm even playing on PS4. I'm not even playing on PS5 or the new Xbox and shit. Those graphics are even better. But other improvements that I would like to see them make, personally, just for my own enjoyment, is through the GM mode. Like the storyline modes and stuff like that are cool, but I get my most usage out of it through the GM mode. I feel like they could make it more like the GM mode of 07, and they've made, steps. You can create feuds, you can turn people heel, do promos. I don't like universe mode. I think GM mode's a lot better. If you can turn money off, that would be a lot better. That should be something that you earn a lot quicker than you do by just buying the biggest arena. I would like to see them make changes to GM mode. I don't think they did this year aside from making it online, which is cool. But I feel like doing it, I don't know. The regular GM mode, turning money off, turning injuries off would be nice if you could have that option. They have all these unlockables, but not shit like that, which makes no sense to me. I don't know. Just there's other things I would change about GM mode, but overall, I think it's a lot of fun. So that's what I would like to see them make, or improvements I would like to see them make for future 2K games. The other stuff doesn't really bother me because I'm not a hardcore gamer, but other people can tell you what they should change. And Jordan's second question: which champion do you think Penta will win, or what title do you think Penta will win first in WWE? Probably the Intercontinental Championship. If he doesn't go to SmackDown after Mania and go after the United States title, he won't be a world champion in WWE, I don't think. I mean, it could be the tag titles. By the time Phoenix comes in, they could become tag team champions. You know what? I'll probably go that, actually. I want to say the IC Championship, but it looks like they kind of moved away from doing Penta and Breaker at Mania at this point. And Penta might be involved in some sort of multi-team tag team match and like a six-man or something. I think before he can win a mid-card belt, Penta comes in, or rather Phoenix comes in, and we get them as tag team champions. So I think the first title he holds in WWE is a tag title, but I would like to see them push him more first before that happens and win a mid-card belt. That is personally what I would like to say. We'll go back to the chat here for a moment. Give me a second here. Mike has said, Clash of the Castle 2022 was a fire pay-per-view. Yeah, that was like the first real show that Triple H was in charge for, and it was an excellent show. Really, really good show. Johnny says, what was your match of the night from AEW Revolution? My match of the night? Maybe Fletcher and Ospreay. Mariah May and Toni Storm was excellent. I feel like it's an overall match. The overall feud was better between Toni Storm and Mariah May. I think my favorite match was the cage match. But MJF and Hangman I really liked. May and Storm was really good. Takeshita and Omega was excellent as well. The main event sucked. The entire card was really good overall. I thought it was a very strong show. I would probably go the cage match, though, between Fletcher and Ospreay. He asked, AEW, if Cody and Punk stayed, if they stayed in AEW might have still been competition to WWE at that point. TNA would probably still be on its own. That's a good point. I don't know if the TNA working relationship would still happen. I mean, I know they worked with AEW initially back in 2020, and that was short-lived. I feel like that might have happened anyway, the TNA working relationship. Would AEW still be competition to WWE? I feel like they'd be in a better spot because Punk's a big star. I feel like they'd be in a better spot if Punk was still on that show. If they still had Punk and Cody did not leave, they would have had to go back in the stipulation at some point. Cody would have had to have gone for the World Championship eventually. He would fucking have to. If he was always competing for the TNT title for the last 3 years, it would have been absolutely awful. Fernando said it would suck to see Travis Scott in a match. I don't have any interest in that at all. Micah said, LOL, well, that's what the belt is for. It's a hardcore title. It's got to be in the main roster eventually. He's got to have a match for it. No, Micah, he doesn't. That belt, we have one too many titles already. We do not need a real hardcore belt. Other superstars in the main roster would benefit from being hardcore champion. I'm telling you, Micah, they would not. The 24/7 title was basically what the hardcore championship was. A couple things here. The 24/7 title lost its luster almost immediately within a matter of months. Second of all, having a fucking lower level title doesn't mean anything. Ask the AEW roster. They have like 3 different mid-card belts. The Continental belt means fucking nothing. Even though it's held by Okada, no one gives a shit. And that would be more meaningful than a hardcore championship. You can tell stories without it being over a lower level belt. The hardcore belt is absolutely not needed. It was a great product of the times in the late 90s, early 2000s. They tried to do it again in 2010s, 2020s with a 24/7 belt, and it sucked overall. The creative effort wasn't there. Triple H had no interest in it either. And also, if you're constantly doing hardcore matches, they just lose value. Honestly, I could see AEW doing something like that before WWE does. The hardcore belt, just because Travis Scott carries around a fake belt, does not mean that it needs to be defended or needs to lead to a match. Absolutely fucking not. That is a hard disagree from me. Too many titles. We do not need another fake one for no reason. Fernando said triple threat for the NXT Championship. Travis Scott versus Ava versus Brandy Rhodes with The Rock as special guest ref. Hashtag book it, Fernando. You're on to something here. Johnny said Cody versus Travis Scott can be the best squash match of all time. Yeah, it would be. I don't think we get Cody and Travis one-on-one. Like, who cares? And they would also have to do that, like, would they do that on Raw? Like, that's not a pay-per-view match. That'd be terrible. I think Cody can just give Travis his receipt. I think Travis training could just be to him not having a match necessarily, but, like, just getting his ass kicked. That could all be that could be all that it is. He doesn't have to wrestle. Not every celebrity has to wrestle or get overly physical. Nathaniel said, I think Paul Heyman, or rather Micah also said, how did you get your job with writing? What were you doing before that job? I've been writing my entire life, essentially, since high school. So I've been doing this entire time. I've been doing this since I was in high school. I used to work at a movie theater, so I did do that. I've done other jobs that were not writing. You know what, honestly, though, I'm trying to think, like, every job that I've had has really just been writing based, whether it be newspaper stuff, online stuff, working at publications, internships, all of it has been writing. So I've been very fortunate in that respect. The only job that I had that was not writing related was working at a movie theater, which I did for a number of years while I was in college and whatnot. So yeah, how I got my job with writing, I already started with Bleach Report when I was in high school. So I already had the in with them for a very long time, and I just never stopped. And you know, it's like as far as internships go and working at publications and doing newspaper stuff, I mean, you get those same jobs the same way you do with anything else. You apply to stuff and you have experience with college. And my college, thankfully, had experience with internships. We were not forced, but you know, they had a program where you could do internships while you were at the school. So I got a lot of jobs doing that sort of stuff as well. But doing wrestling writing, I've been doing for as long as I can remember, for the last 15 years. And I just never stopped, and it turned into more of a job than it was just a hobby, and the rest is history, I suppose. Nathaniel said, I think Paul Heyman will turn on Roman at WrestleMania. I think there's a very good chance of that. Yes, Alexis, like she said, we met while working at the same movie theater. That is how Alexis and I met. A number of years ago, of course. That is our origin story. But yeah, I think there's a very real chance that Paul Heyman does turn on Roman at WrestleMania. Johnny said, my match of the night was Omega versus Takeshita. Yeah, that's not a bad choice. A close second was Tony versus Mariah. Both matches were great. I didn't like Mark Davis getting involved in the cage match, Johnny says. I don't disagree with that. That was totally unnecessary, but I did overall like the match. Just a great match. Let's see. Fernando said too many titles in AEW and WWE. I definitely agree with that. Nathaniel said, I wasn't a fan of the 24/7 title. Remember when Gronk won it and R-Truth kept winning it back and losing it? It was crazy. Yeah, R-Truth held that belt like fucking 30, 40 times, whatever the fuck it was, over the course of 2-3 years. It was nuts. He also said, what if The Rock defends the People's Belt? I would laugh. Again, another example of a belt that does not mean anything, does not matter. I don't know if we're getting the People's Belt again, though, because he hasn't shown back up with it since then, right? He didn't have it at Elimination Chamber. He did not have it at SmackDown. I think he had it at the Raw premiere on Netflix, but he hasn't had it since. Maybe on NXT, but he did not have it at SmackDown a few weeks ago, and I don't think he had it at the Chamber. So, I guess not. Thankfully, he will not defend it. That would be terrible. Tyreek said Cody needs his payback on Travis. Yes, he does. Hopefully, he beats the shit out of him. Nathaniel said, I love the TNT title when Christian and Cope were feuding for it. Yeah, I agree with that. I think the TNT title had a lot of elevation, had a lot of prestige at that point. I think the TNT title was also well booked for its first year when Cody had it. Brody Lee briefly, Cody again. 2020 was a great year for the TNT title. 2021 as well. I enjoyed Miro's run. It went down the toilet, I think, in 2022 when Scorpio and Sammy were trading it back and forth. At that point, the belt meant nothing. Wardlow was trading it back and forth. Joe had a great run with it for a little while. He dropped it and won it back and all that other shit. By 2023, it was completely meaningless. But yeah, when Christian and Edge were feuding for it, did have a lot of prestige at that point. I agree with that. And that was only about a year or so ago. Micah also asked, if you weren't a writer, what job would you have for a career right now? I would like for you to book AEW over TK, but what would you do? What would I do differently? I would not want to be a booker. I feel like that's way too stressful. I like doing the GM mode shit, but I feel like being a booker is way more stressful than one might think. If I wasn't a writer, what would I be doing? Honestly, probably a teacher. I mean, I can still teach because I have my master's degree, but and it's not like I was a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher, and then I gave up on that, and then I wanted to be a writer right after that. The only time I wanted to be a teacher was when I was in elementary school, and I think that was it. That was my whole gimmick when I was a kid. I wanted to be a teacher. So I guess if I wasn't a writer, I guess I probably could have done. I could still do that, but my sole passion could have been teaching, I suppose. But after I saw all the shit that teachers get, and they get severely underpaid, among other things, I just lost. That was very early on. This was not like 5-10 years ago. I'm talking like back when I was a kid. So probably in an alternate universe, I probably would have grown up to be only a teacher and not liked wrestling and not been a writer or anything like that. Fernando asked, when did you discover writing was your talent and your future? I think in high school. I had always done writing, like I said, dating back to when I was a kid. But when I really pursued wrestling writing as more than just a hobby, and I really went all in with that, I kind of figured that would be something that I really wanted to do. For the longest time, I always wanted to work for WWE. And when you kind of look longer into it and it never really came to fruition, I kind of pivoted, to use that word. And I don't know, wrestling was always my big hobby. So I always thought it was my big passion. I always thought it was a good idea to merge a hobby, or not just a hobby, to merge two passions that you have for each other and make the most out of that, whether it be writing and wrestling or whatever. And those are my two biggest passions, and I made a career out of that. So, I would say probably high school, probably around like sophomore year of high school. Some people discover sooner than others, though. Some people may not figure out their life path until like they're in college or after the fact. Everyone's different. But for me, it was in high school personally. I think just by getting more opportunities to do writing, more wrestling writing, branching out into that, and also getting great feedback from certain people, that kind of motivated me and inspired me to do more of it. Because I liked it too. It wasn't like I just did it because I was good at it, or I did it because I felt like I had to. I genuinely enjoyed doing it. It never really feels like I'm working if I'm writing. I feel like this is probably the best way to put it. Nathaniel said Rock had it at Bad Blood and on NXT. Yes, he did, but he did not have it on SmackDown recently or on Chamber. That's what I was trying to say. Micah said, I was talking to someone on TikTok live last night. They said they think we get Rock versus Cena 3, but Rock beats Cena for the WWE title, defends the title of Royal Rumble, and loses because of Roman costing Rock. That would be fucking terrible. We do not need Cena Rock 3 in 2025. It sucked in 2013. It would be even worse in 2025 or 2026. Rock does not need the belt. That would be awful as well. None of that sounds any good. All of that sounds terrible. And that would also imply that Cena is still wrestling beyond 2025. I don't think he comes back and says, oh, I lied, I'm not retiring at the end of the year. Even that I wouldn't be overly fond of. I think it'd be funny. I think it'd be cool. But it's not something I need to see happen. If Cena says he's done this year based on the matches he's had quality-wise, I don't need to see that necessarily. That would be awful. You also said the match for picking Cena as champion over him sets up a match at Mania 42. With Roman and Rock, I feel like there's a lot easier ways to get there than doing that shit. No thanks, personally. Fernando said if the reports are true that The Rock wanted Cody to turn originally instead of Cena, but Cody vetoed it, is that a mistake? That would have been a mistake. That would have been a mistake to do that. To turn Cody heel, as I've said before, I didn't really think the Cena turn made sense either. Which, hopefully they do make sense of it. I'm more interested in heel Cena, though, than heel Cody at this point. Heel Cody at this point, when he's as beloved as he is as the face of the company. I said the same thing about Cena, but Cena's not the face of the company anymore. And he's also at the end of his career. with Cody, that would be fucking terrible. To turn your top babyface heel at this point would have been just booking malpractice. So thankfully they did not do that. Rock clearly does not watch the product. So thankfully they did not do that. Johnny said, who should Tony face at Dynasty? Tony Storm? I have no idea. They have no one ready. I don't know. She's already beaten Deanna and Thunder Rosa for that belt last year. They don't really have anyone waiting in the wings, honestly, for Tony Storm. Mercedes Moné, at least they're seemingly setting up Athena potentially at some point. With Tony, they've kind of put all their eggs in the Tony Storm Mariah May basket. They don't really have anyone waiting in the wings, like I said, so honestly, I'm not really sure. I'd have to look at the roster. Fernando said, who made the first move as in introducing yourselves to each other, and what did you do for a first date? For me and Alexis, that's a good question. Who made the first move? I was already working there, and Alexis got hired, and I trained her one day, and we kind of hit it off after that. As the famous story goes, and I say famous, I haven't talked about it here on this stream, but her and I have talked about this with many other people. After the day that we first worked together, she needed the schedule, and I had a picture of it on my phone. She says, "Oh my God, I love this." She loves the fact that I'm bringing this up. She is still determined that I was more desperate than I actually was to give her my number. Yes, we did hit it off the minute that we met. But she thinks that I was more desperate than I actually was to give her my number. I may have come off enthusiastically because I was nice. I definitely wasn't like, oh yeah, I'll give you my number. Like, she thinks I acted that way. I definitely didn't, but whatever. And then we started texting after that, and I ghosted her because she texted me and I didn't respond back. But it wasn't really, I didn't want to be weird by continuing to text her. I didn't want to seem desperate that way. So if I wasn't desperate then it would have been weird to act desperate before that. Her story isn't really consistent. Let's put it that way. I was desperate to give her my number, but I was so desperate that I didn't text her back. That doesn't make sense. I mean, she did say there in all caps, you were not desperate, but you offered your number to me. I did because I had the schedule. So I did that just to make it easier because, anyway, whatever. So then we started talking after that, blah, 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 blah. We went on our first quote-unquote date probably a couple of weeks later. We went to get Mexican food. I got done working, and then at the movie theater, what they would do midnight showings of movies. Before they had like premiere. So a movie would come out on a Friday or a Thursday, but for the people that worked there, they would air movies like on Tuesday or Wednesday at midnight. You could see it the night that it opened, technically, just for an employee showing type thing. So I got done working. We got Mexican food. That's what we did for our first date. And then we walked back over to the movie theater to see Jurassic World 2, which was awful. It was not a good movie. This is true. She brings this up constantly, and it's funny. And this part is definitely true that we could definitely agree on. We get to the movie theater, and I don't know if we ever really established that watching the movie was part of the date. We just both said that we were going. My brother was going to meet us there. He didn't know that I was on a date. He was just going to see the movie. I asked if he wanted to go, and I needed a ride home, so he said I could bring it back, whatever. So we met at the movie theater. And we get inside the theater, we walk in together, and I never told anyone that Alexis and I were going on this date. No one really knew about it, but as soon as they saw us walking together, they probably knew. My brother was already there, so I go to sit next to him, far away from Alexis, who sat with someone else. She was jokingly not happy about that, thinking, why would you just go sit with your brother and not with me? Because I thought the date was over at that point. So that is true. And then the rest is kind of history after that. But that was the first date. We got Mexican food at a really good place, and then we went to go see a movie. But it wasn't really just the two of us. There were other people, and my brother was there. Some other people that we were friends with at the time was also there. Yeah, she went to high school with my brother, so she already knew my brother. She already knew of him. They weren't like friends or anything. And yeah, so that's basically the genesis of how we met. Let's put it that way. Fernando, or rather Mike, has said earlier, I was thinking Cena loses at SummerSlam. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping he wins at Mania, loses at SummerSlam or Money in the Bank. What I'm worried about is that he loses at Mania and then he doesn't win the belt until the end of the year, which I was hoping for when he was a babyface, but as a heel, that would be awful. To just turn him heel and then not give him the belt and then he has to go back to being a babyface again, I don't like that idea at all. Maybe they can make it work, but on the surface, I don't love that. Mike has said, GSM, did you see that girl at AW reveal that wrestling is predetermined? If that happens on a Vince show, what do you think he would have done? He would have been pissed. Nothing would have happened. I don't think she meant to say that that wrestling was predetermined. I think she just misspoke. I talked about this earlier when someone asked about it. I think she just meant to say something else, and it came off poorly. So it didn't really bother me. I think if it was Vince running the show, he would have been extremely pissed backstage, but she doesn't work there, so what would he have done? Booted her from the building, maybe? I don't know. I still don't really think it was a massive deal, though. I think what she meant to say was that wrestlers know that themselves are winners because they work hard and they're tough and whatever before anyone else sees them win a match. I don't think she was trying to say that it was predetermined. That would have been incredibly dumb. Maybe that's what she meant. I doubt it. But anyway. Micah also said, my friends in high school used to work at the IMAX Palladium, he said. 10 cents icy and 25-cent popcorn with their employee discount. Damn, that's a fucking discount. We used to just get shit for free. Not really ices, but like sodas and popcorn we would. That's an amazing deal, though, for an IMAX. That's crazy. Johnny said, how about Kenny versus Ricochet at Dynasty in a title match? I like that. I feel like, what does Ospreay do, though? I feel like Ospreay can go back to Ricochet because Ricochet beat him in their last match. That's what I was thinking about was next for Ricochet. But Kenny and Ricochet, I would not complain. Johnny said Kyle versus Garcia for the TNT title at Dynasty. That I agree with. I didn't think Fletcher takes the TNT title from Garcia. Fernando said, I'm so sorry you saw Jurassic World 2 for your first date. Yeah, it sucked. It was a good movie to make fun of, let's put it that way. Definitely not good. The third one was better. The second one was not. Mike has said, Alexis, this camera that you got, GSM, is really nice. I like it. If I ever do streaming like GSM, I would need to invest in the same camera. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Alexis did get this for me, like I said previously, like Alexis said. It was only $60. It's not like overly expensive. I thought it was like 100 something. It was only $60, she said. It's on Amazon. And, yeah. So it's a great camera. So I hope you guys enjoy the camera quality. That is courtesy of Alexis. 4K camera. Let's see. Johnny said, Will can face Josh or Mike Bailey at Dynasty? Yeah, but does he lose to them? I mean, maybe. Yeah, I guess Will Ospreay and Josh Alexander would make sense because they had matches previously in TNA. I think he actually faced Mike Bailey in TNA too. So yeah, I guess those matches could make sense. Johnny said, don't hate me for this one. Tony Storm versus Britt Baker at Dynasty. At least, it's not a fresh match. They've definitely done that match before. They feuded a few years ago, actually, so it's not a fresh match at all. Yeah, they'd have to bring Britt Baker back and turn her heel again. But, yeah, if it's meant to give Tony Storm a win, then yeah, that could work. Give Tony the win over Britt and then move on. Fernando said, fans need to cut the actress a break about what she said. Yeah, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Tyreek said, is Ricochet for the Ospreay? I don't know what you mean by that, but is like Ricochet next for Ospreay is probably what you mean. I think so. I think there's a good chance because Ricochet's brought up before how he beat Ospreay, and Ospreay has yet to beat him in AEW. So I feel like that might be the next feud for both guys. Micah says, I still watch Jurassic World 1. It's the best of the three. It's more like a monster movie. I like the first one. The second one, the third one I enjoyed. The first of the three was the best. The second was just terrible. I like the first one. It's all downhill from there, but the first one was good. Johnny said Mercedes can face Billy Starks at Dynasty. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Then Mercedes and Athena at Double or Nothing would be good. Daniel said, do we see the loser of Stephanie and Julia going heel? I could see it. Just because Jordan Grace is also there, and those are top 3 baby faces, and Roxanne's definitely getting called up soon. So yes, I could totally see one of them going heel. Yeah, maybe the loser. I could see that. Johnny says Athena has to lose the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship before challenging Monet. I agree. I don't know when she's going to lose it. That's the problem. Fernando said, have you ever had an uncomfortable interview with anyone before? I mean, I talked about the Bully Ray interview a couple of weeks ago. I didn't really love that interview. That interview's here on the channel. Didn't love that. I thought it was fine. Bully just kind of gave me a weird vibe, but that's kind of just who he is, I think. So that was kind of uncomfortable. I've definitely had other uncomfortable interviews. Nothing that was like bad, I don't think. I mean, some that were not great. Matt Taven, I've told that interview, I've told that story a million times. I'll not tell it again here, but Matt Taven was definitely uncomfortable because he kind of gave me a weird vibe and was not taking shots at me, but he was saying weird shit about me personally, I think. It was very strange about shit that I said previously that I think he took out of context. Anyway, yeah, Matt Taven and is the one that comes to mind, and then also Bully Ray from recently. Yeah, yes, Richie, we are still going. He said I went to take a walk. Super nice out. It is nice out today. I would love to experience it once I get out of here. We are over 2 hours in. I told myself I would not go over 2 hours today, and here we are. We got a lot of people joining. You guys are great with the questions. I have answered some of the scheduled questions. We're going to go back to that in just a moment when I get through these other chats here in a moment. Ahmed said, Sup, Graham, I thought Raw was pretty boring for the most part last night, but there's some good parts of the show. Lucha Gable Gracias in the main event. I liked the show. I thought it was fine. They've had better shows. I was expecting more with it being MSG. Thought it was a fine show. I thought it was a, fine show for what it was. But yeah, I thought the Lucha Gable thing was funny and the main event thing was great too. Johnny said, Alien or Aliens? Aliens. I liked both movies, although Aliens was better. It might be a hot take, but I thought Aliens was great. I also liked the most recent movie, Romulus. I was not expecting to like that as much as I did. I thought that was a great movie. Tyreek said, why does TK hate Athena? I don't know if it's her choice or his choice or whatever the fuck, but she's barely been in AEW since she signed there 3 years ago. A complete fucking joke. Complete joke. So, yeah, I don't know. They got to put Athena back on the show. Richie said, Graham, if The Rock asked you for your soul, would you give it to him? This would grant you eternal clout, in full leadership of the 4 roots, 1 tree. Abso-fucking-lutely. Listen, dude, I shit on The Rock, I shit on Ava, but if I was given an opportunity to sell my soul, give up this entire channel, I love you guys, but for The Rock's fame, I'm selling out in a heartbeat. I'm sorry, Cody. Cody made the right choice because Cody's already a big star. I'm not a Cody Rhodes, okay? I would sell out in 2 seconds if it meant getting whatever fame. I mean, would I have to be cast in Jumanji 7? I mean, I guess. If it means people just shitting on me but making a fuck ton of money and living the lifestyle that Rock does, I will take that in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, sorry. And if it also means being the leader of 4 roots, 1 tree, then I'll take you in a heartbeat. Heel Cena even says in the chat it was a pretty good deal. Heel Cena is here in the chat. If you have any questions for why he turned heel, just ask him. He said it was a pretty good deal, so he made the right one. I think I agree with him on that one. Mike has said, you talk about Goldberg and Sasha Banks being rough interviews for you. The Sasha Banks one for sure. The Goldberg one started out uncomfortable. That one made me nervous. But once we recovered, it was a pretty decent interview after that. And I've interviewed him other times and he was great. Sasha Banks was uncomfortable. That one was just she was just annoying. She was constantly in character and I just didn't love that interview. So I forgot about Sasha, but Sasha as well. Johnny said, what should be next for Hangman Page and MJF? I would continue the feud. I know Hangman won clean, so there's no real reason to continue it, but I think MJF should go back after Hangman. Heel Cena said he got a 3-picture Disney deal. So he's living large. Probably cast in Moana 3, 4, and 5, if I had to take a guess. He mentioned earlier, Heel Cena did. They're all a bit weird. You have to be in this business. He said everyone's a bit weird. So we were talking about the interview thing. So Heel Cena would know. He's been in the business for a long time. Tooth Fairy too, he says. Richie says, Romulus was fantastic and incredibly well done. Final act and love letter to the Alien franchise. Yeah, I enjoyed that movie a lot. Tyreek said, finisher spam galore these last few days. Yeah, especially in that cage match last night. Way too many finishers, but a great match overall. AEW, a lot of finishers as well. But I think I saw more in that cage match on Monday than I did in anything on Sunday, to be perfectly honest with you. Johnny said, what do you think of Saraya's run at AEW? Very disappointing. Did we call her a game changer? I might have called her a game changer in AEW when she first showed up. And then obviously it's been anything but that. I like Saraya. I'm a Saraya fan. She really hasn't done anything. Her in-ring work has been very lacking. She just is not the same performer that she was even a couple of years ago. I don't think her style really fits well in AEW. I feel like it might be better suited for WWE at this point, honestly, if she continues wrestling. I mean, I'm glad she even came back at all, but she's just not the same page of, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, before she got hurt, which is unfortunate. Tony versus Saraya can be an option for Dynasty. I mean, it would be, but would anyone really care? I mean, Saraya's been gone for so long. She can come back, and that doesn't have a whole lot of heat, I think, with most people. So it could be. I'm just not sure how many people would give a shit. Ahmed said, Graham, were you lucky, I guess is what you meant to say. Are you happy about Raw being in the afternoon for the next 3 weeks? I'll take it. I think it's fucking awesome. I'm not going to be able to watch the show live, but I'm definitely going to watch it before 8 o'clock Eastern time. My Mondays are going to be freed up for the first time. My Monday nights are going to be freed up for the first time in like 17 years. There's been a few Raws where I have not, there's been a lot of Raws where I have not watched live, but watched after the fact, or or it's been canceled or whatever. There has never been a stretch of 3 Monday nights where I had nothing going on because Raw was not airing. This would be the first time. So I am very much looking forward to that. Very much looking forward to that. Tyreek said, when are we going to have an honest convo about Nick Aldis and Nick Baldis? What's the honest convo? Nick Aldis should be in the ring. Nick, I think they both play their roles really, really well. I like them both. Nick Baldis is funny. Adam Pearce shouldn't be in the ring at this point, I don't think. But Nick Aldis for sure. They got to move him into the ring. I don't know when that's going to be, if ever. Fernando said if Cody and Punk never return to WWE, WWE would break the emergency glass and bring in Veer to save WWE and take over for Roman. I forgot about Veer. You're right. We talk a lot about Veer on these streams. You are right. Veer would have been the man. They dropped the ball by not pushing Veer in that spot. Let's see here. Richie said John Cena for the live action. Buzz Lightyear confirmed. Hey, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. I think that'd be pretty great, actually, if they had heel John Cena for the Buzz Lightyear movie. I feel like that'd be pretty perfect, actually. It also said, Graham, did you watch the Gorilla Position interview of Sasha Banks? I don't think so. I've seen Ariel's interview with her, Ariel Helwani's interview, and she was also in character. The Gorilla Position one, is it new or is it from years ago? I'm going to have to check it out. If it's as cringy as some of the other ones that she's done, then I don't think I've seen it, but I want to watch it now. Johnny said you probably would have been mad interviewing Broken Matt Hardy in character. I wouldn't have been. First of all, big Matt Hardy fan. I know Matt Hardy. I knew him before Broken Matt, so he would not have been fucking rude or anything, I don't think. Matt's great, and I also love Broken Matt. I've interviewed wrestlers in character. That's not the problem. Sasha is just a complete bitch in character, and she just gave me nothing. She gave no one anything from the interviews. Sasha was one I interviewed her in 2020 as well. Ahmed said he mentioned it was from 2020. I probably did see it. That was when she did the interview with me, Ariel, Gorilla Position. They were all just nothing. Like, she didn't really say anything of note because she was constantly in character. She's like, oh yeah, my favorite match of all time is involving me. It's like, can you just like fucking answer the actual question for once? Like, give me something. Not dirt, but like give me a good answer. But yeah, like Broken Matt Hardy in character was fun, would have been fun. I interviewed Danhausen in character a few years ago. One of the best interviews I've ever done. He was amazing. So it's not an in-character thing. It's a person playing the character kind of thing. Fernando said, who do you think should win the Mania Triple Threat, Punk, Roman, Seth? We talked about this earlier. Who do I think should win? Probably Punk. I could see Seth winning because Seth lost at Mania twice last year. He lost at Mania in 2022. And no, he won in 2023. Roman could afford a loss. I'm going to say Punk should win. Roman did not need another Mania win at this point. I'll go Punk, but Seth winning would be cool too. By pinning Roman specifically. Johnny said, I want to see a Tap-Eye Deathmatch in AEW. I've seen enough of those in MLW where I don't really care to see that in any other company. Let's put it that way. Tyreek said, it bothers me that TK lets Saraya's fam get so much shine with the skeletons in that closet. Well, they let go of her brother, if that's what you're talking about. I mean, her family's been on the show a few times, but they hired her brother. He was not interesting at all, and then they let his contract expire, and he's no longer there. So we don't have to worry about that either. Micah said, Paige will probably be back for a Hall of Fame induction next year or something. I don't really have interest in seeing her wrestle a match in WWE. The only match people I want to see in WWE is Mickie James and AJ Lee. I agree with both of those. I don't need to see Paige wrestle in WWE again. I think it'd be cool for a one-off on like a Rumble or something. A full-on run probably is behind us at this point, honestly. But yeah, in the Hall of Fame at some point down the road, I feel like she will absolutely be in the Hall of Fame at some point for sure. They induct if they can induct fucking Tori Wilson and who else? Stacy Keibler, who did jack shit in WWE for the most part, they can induct Paige at some point down the road. Maybe not now. She's a little young, but at some point down the road for sure. Richie said Von Wagner and Veer would have been baby faces of WWE today if Punk and Cody were not around coming Tuesday. You're right about that. You're absolutely right about that. Fernando said Cena would have been a perfect Popeye live action movie. He would have been. He would have been the perfect live action Popeye type guy. Ahmed said, "Is Seth the heel? Is he a face, heel, or tweener? If you can tell, Graham, I'm confused." I think it's all shades of gray. I think Seth is still like a tweener babyface type character. So, yeah, I feel like he's more of a tweener at this point. But honestly, I feel like you could make this case for Punk, Roman, and Rollins all being tweeners. I like the shades of gray. As long as, it's a little confusing, but it's not confusing to the point where it's a problem. Like Tiffany and Charlotte is kind of confusing. Are people supposed to cheer Tiffany? She doesn't really feel overly comfortable as a babyface. That's weird to me. But the Seth, Roman, Punk thing, they all just fucking hate each other. That's all I need to know. Fernando said, I have heard Jay White does interviews in character. I've never interviewed Jay White, so I did not know that. I like Jay White, though. I feel like that, if they do, here's the thing. MJF does a lot of his characters, a lot of his interviews in character. That's fine. But if it's interesting or entertaining, then that's cool. But if they're not interesting, entertaining, and just kayfabe bullshit, that is where it's a problem. So, Jay White, I'm sure, would be fine. As long as it's interesting. MJF's interviews are always entertaining because he's in character and he gives good shit usually. A lot of these other people, when they're in character, do not. Like even Toni Storm, I think she does a lot of her interviews in character, but she makes it either entertaining or interesting. The Sasha Banks one was just not, it was not either of those. And it wasn't just me either. Tyreek said, haven't liked Paige since Tough Enough. My lord, talk about a brat. Yeah, I forgot she was a coach on that show. That was 10 years ago. Fernando said, does it throw you off your game when talent do interviews in character? Yeah, a little bit, but honestly, it's usually better when I know they're in character. Or, I don't know. If I know they're in character, then it kind of makes it easier. If I'm expecting it to be out of character and they're in character, then that throws me off. That doesn't happen often, though. I typically know ahead of time. The WWE PR people, I've said this before, but when I interviewed Sasha the first time, they called me before they were supposed to call me. They called me like 10 minutes earlier, and it was just him, the PR guy that worked there at the time, doesn't work there now. And he goes, just to give you a heads up, Sasha's in character, and some people that have interviewed her have kind of had a problem with that, so she might go a little hard on you just to give you a heads up. Like she might be like annoying or kind of insult you or whatever. So just a heads up, that's what she does. So I apologize in advance. I'm like, okay. Like, sounds good. I can deal with it. And the first interview we did wasn't great, but she was fine. The second one, she was definitely more annoying. And I think she was a heel at that point, too. The first time she was a babyface and she was in character, acting like, oh yeah, I'm the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, you're supposed to be a fucking babyface. Like, why are you so annoying right now? It made no sense. Anyway, Johnny said Toni Storm versus Megan Bayne or Penelope Ford. Megan Bayne, it's too soon because she would have to lose. Penelope Ford, absolutely not. Who gives a shit? Richie said, LOL, don't get Graham started on Megan Bayne. Yeah, not a big fan. I think she's good. I just feel like she's a charisma vacuum. I think she's been booked very well in AEW so far, but I need to see more personality and charisma on promos and whatnot. Johnny said, are you excited about Jay White versus Adam Copeland? Excited? I don't know if I'm excited about it, especially after that Cope match at Revolution that sucked. I am interested in it, though. Hopefully Jay White can fucking win. Johnny said, I want to see what AEW does with Mariah May now. Me too. You also said you wouldn't be able to interview Sabu in character. I wouldn't want to interview Sabu at all. But if I did, that would be interesting to say the least. Them warning you about Sasha is telling. Yeah, that's what Daniel said. Yeah, it was, I guess she just gave a lot of interviewers a hard time. I'm curious who she talked to before she talked to me. Maybe she was had just interviewed with Gorilla Position or Ariel. Ariel doesn't do the in-character fucking bullshit. He's not a fan of that stuff. He talked about, before he had that Tony Khan interview a few years ago, he said the worst interview he's ever done. This is a guy that's been around for 15, 20 years. He said the worst interview he had ever done up to that point was with Sasha fucking Banks. And I do not doubt that for a second. He's trying to get something out of her, and she gives absolutely nothing. And I feel like she's still like that even today. I haven't interviewed her in 3-4 years, but I feel like she's still like that today. Ahmed said, we need a serious discussion as to why Adam Copeland hasn't put over talent enough in AEW. And I like Edge, but it's a little weird as to why he's not putting over talent enough in AEW. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. I feel like a big part of it was that he was gone for so long. Like, he's been here for a year and a half. But 8 of those months he was injured, so you can't really count that. He put over Christian, which doesn't really count because Christian's his friend, and Christian doesn't need to be put over. He should have put over House of Black, but then he got hurt. He should have put him over before he got hurt. He got hurt in that match. But after that, he probably honestly would have lost the belt to Jack Perry. I think he would have put over Jack Perry. We never got that. So then he comes back. Why would he lose like so far since he's been back? So honestly, I don't really believe the coat politicking thing. Didn't lose a whole lot in WWE either when he probably should have. He beat a lot of people in WWE that he probably shouldn't have. But I don't really know if that's his fault or WWE's fault or AEW's fault. So, yeah, I don't really think it's a cope issue. We'll see. If he doesn't lose any matches going forward, he didn't even really get pinned on Sunday. He passed out in the sleeper hold. So I don't know. I think that's more of an AEW issue, personally, than it is an Edge issue, but we'll see where it goes from here. Johnny said, I heard Megan Bayne is your favorite female wrestler today. Oh, yeah. I'm keeping it quiet. Actually, that's not true. Megan Bayne is number 2. Ava's number 1. She doesn't even wrestle. That's how great she is. Ava's my number 1. Daniel said, even if these people are TK, I think you missed a word there. TK calls Edge. Edge could, even if the, oh, okay, I'm sorry. You didn't miss a word. I'm just misreading it. Even if these are TK calls, comma, the comma would have made a difference. Even if if these are TK calls, Edge could still speak up about putting folks over. That I agree with as well. Daniel said, I love Megan Bayne. All the homies love Megan Bayne. Yeah, I mean, I'm not dissing anyone that likes Megan Bayne. She's got a good look. She looks like a star. But when she comes out, it's like, okay, give me something. Like, give me facial expressions or play to the crowd or something. She's just fucking boring to me, but she is a good worker. I will say that for sure. She has a future. I think she's a good pickup for AEW, and they booked her well so far. But she's got to give me more than what she has so far. And I say me like I'm the fucking one that matters. I really don't, but I'm just giving you my perspective on it. And Johnny also said, hopefully we get the Hurt Syndicate versus Brian Cage and Archer at Dynasty. Yeah, hopefully, but I just feel like the ass-backwards booking of teasing them facing Hurt Syndicate, then having them lose to the fucking Outrunners, who I like, they're over, but that's stupid booking. It kind of ruined a lot of interest I had in that Murder Machine's Hurt Syndicate match. Cage and Archer just keep taking losses like it's nobody's business. At this point, who could possibly care? Back to the scheduled questions here. Average Grunt sent in a great question. I'll get through these, probably the following questions, the scheduled questions, and then we'll wrap it up after we read through the chat. You guys can answer this question too. I'm very curious to what you guys have to say about this. This was Grunt's question from YouTube. He said, if you could go back and make any of the one-night WrestleManias a 2-night show, which one would you pick and how would you book it? And he said which matches on which nights and what matches would you add or remove. And he also said just to make it interesting, you can only pick from the first 30 because making any Mania between 33 and 35 2 nights would be too easy. It's a great question. So honestly, I did put some thought into this. And I already came up with this answer, which I'm going to give you my answer. But after the fact, I thought about 2 other Manias that I thought would have been better as 2-night shows. I wasn't watching back then, so it doesn't really matter to me now. But WrestleMania 4 would have been good as a 2-night show because it had that massive tournament with like fucking 16, 18 matches on it on one show. They could have headlined the first night with that Hogan-Andre quarterfinal match or whatever because it was the main event of WrestleMania 3. So they could have done that as the WrestleMania night 1 for WrestleMania 4 and then done the entire tournament the same way they did, but break it up into 2 different nights. That I feel like would have been a great idea. The other Mania I thought of was WrestleMania 2 for this sole reason that instead of doing it from 3 separate cities in one day or night or whatever, which was a fucking logistical nightmare, just do it from 2 different cities across 2 days. Wouldn't have made that big of a difference, but it would have been probably a bit more cleaner and not as, chopped up and whatnot. So Mania 2 and Mania 4. The Mania that I settled on, that I've always thought was just too long of a show and is not one of my favorite Manias, Grunt's going to like this answer because he loves this Mania. My answer, and I'm curious what you guys think, that I feel like a one-night Mania before WrestleMania 30 that would have worked better as a 2-night Mania is WrestleMania 20 in 2004. And here's why. They had about, I think, 12 matches across the card, where if you separate it up, even if there's not any segments, they could still do a segment. I don't know what segments they had on WrestleMania fucking 20. But what you can do is you can put 6 matches on one night and 6 matches on another night. I feel like that would have made perfect fucking sense. I feel like that would have been great. So here's what I would have done. And in this order, no less too. I put a lot of thought into this. So night one for WrestleMania 20, you still open with John Cena and Big Show for the United States Championship. All the results are the same. But Cena and Big Show opens night one. Then the Fatal 4-Way World Tag Team title match. Then the Cruiserweight Open. And then Victoria and Molly Holly for the Women's World Championship. For the Women's Championship. Goldberg and Lesnar. And then Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero for the WWE title. That could have worked as a Mania main event. Night two, Jericho and Christian opens the show, followed by the WWE Tag Team title match, the evening gown match, which was awful, but like if we're keeping the card as is, which I probably would, I would keep that, I guess. So you have two matches, two women's matches, one across both nights. The Evolution Rock and Sock match, the handicap tag team match, Taker and Kane, and then Benoit, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels. That I feel like would have been the perfect two-night Mania. With that order, 6 and 6, that would have been awesome. So, because I feel like even back then it was like a 4-hour Mania, 4+ hour Mania, too long. They weren't doing 4-hour Manias at that point, so it kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. That would have been a good two-night show in my opinion. Hand sanitizer 1963 from YouTube. Are we sure John Cena didn't just attack Cody Rhodes because he said the F word in front of kids? Joke Society says, I think one of the first things Cena should do as a heel is attack his biggest fan, R-Truth, to really get the fans to hate him. What are your thoughts? We've talked about this before. I fucking completely agree with that. That would be fantastic. R-Truth is beloved, so to have John Cena come out and say, hey, fuck you, and attack the shit out of him to get great heat, that would be fantastic. So completely on board with that idea. Hopefully it happens soon. Whether it be next week on Raw or at some point between now and Mania, that would be great. No L on Facebook. They were in the chat a little bit earlier on. They sent this in through Facebook last night. They said, thoughts on the Toni Storm versus Mariah May Hollywood match. I mentioned this earlier, but I thought the match was great. Perfect blow-off, perfect payoff to that feud. They should have gone longer, but for the time given, it was great. And then also it should have main evented. No reason to not have that match main event, especially if they were going to main event with what they did. That awful angle to go off the show that way, it really should have been Toni and Mariah May going on last. At Iwagu91, last 3 questions from them to close out the episode here for the scheduled questions before we go back to the chat. They said, I'm baffled that Andrade has not regained the Cien Almas in his ring name, despite Vince McMahon no longer being in the WWE. What about you? Yeah, I mean, I'm not completely shocked. I mean, he hasn't been Cien Almas since 2019. So honestly, it's been so long that he hasn't had the Cien Almas that it doesn't really surprise me that he hasn't gotten it back. They did make, like, I say that like, oh, it's been so long, who cares at this point? They did make the Viking Raiders the War Raiders. The Viking Raiders were the Viking Raiders for 5 fucking years in WWE. They did not have to make them the War Raiders again, but they did, which I really appreciate. So if they gave them the War Raiders name or the Viking Raiders name around the same time that Cien Almas had to drop Cien Almas and he was just Andrade, he could make him Andrade Cien Almas, but Andrade probably doesn't really care. WWE probably doesn't really care. It's not going to really make a difference. It's not a gimmick change. Like the War Raiders was a gimmick change. With Andrade, the Cien Almas doesn't really, it's not a gimmick, so it doesn't really matter. What surprised me was that I thought he might be Andrade El Idolo in WWE, the name that he used in AEW. He had a vignette where it said Andrade El Idolo pop up on the screen, and then when he came up to Raw or had his first Raw match a couple of weeks later, he was back to being Andrade. So it was very short-lived. That I would have rather seen, honestly, over Andrade Cien Almas, which would have been nice if he had that name back, but it's not like a massive difference maker by any means. His second question, do you see Jade Cargill and Naomi having a singles match with each other at WrestleMania? At this point, yes. I do feel like it's got to be a Mania match. The story's hot enough to where it makes sense now. I would have done something also involving Bianca, but Bianca's involved in the Women's World Championship match with Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. So, it is what it is, but yeah, Jade and Naomi having a match at Mania makes the most sense. Honestly, I mean, I probably would have done Rhea and Io one-on-one and then made Bianca, Jade, and Naomi a triple threat. I know we already have a triple threat with the men, but we're getting a triple threat with the women either way, whether it be for the title match or Jade and Naomi. So I would have just made it Jade, Bianca, Naomi in a triple threat, but whatever. Jade and Naomi one-on-one is also a perfectly fine match. I'm looking forward to that. Last question from at Uwagu91. If Finn Balor does get kicked out of the Judgment Day, which should end already, he says, and I agree, do you think JD McDonough remaining by his side will remain by his side out of loyalty or betraying him instead as well. I'm probably betraying him. I think Finn would probably go back on his own. We don't need Finn and JD as a tag team anymore. They already had their tag team title run. It was fucking long and boring. We don't need that again. So I would probably, I mean, we don't know when JD's back. He's hurt anyway. He probably won't be back anytime soon. I would think JD would, I mean, it sucks for JD because if he's on his own, he's fucked. He's not getting beyond a certain level. But Finn would probably be back on his own as a babyface. And we've been getting the demon teases too in recent weeks. If you've been paying attention in the background of the Judgment Day Clubhouse segments, you could see the Demon Balor in the background. So it's something they might be hinting towards on purpose, which is interesting to know. So yeah, I think Finn would probably be on his own once he eventually does get kicked out of the Judgment Day, which hopefully should be soon. And that does it for the scheduled questions. Let me back up a little bit here to the chat, what you guys have been saying. Before we call it a day here on the stream. If you haven't already, please like the video, by the way. I would appreciate it. You probably already have, but if you're coming in now or after the fact, like the video, subscribe, all that stuff, greatly appreciated. Hit the bell button to be notified every single time we go live and every single time we upload a new video. Anyway, let's see. Daniel said you weren't feeling that Bane Thunder Rosa chair segment. No, that was terrible. That wasn't even entirely a Megan Bane fault of hers. It was a fault of everyone in the ring. That whole segment was embarrassing. I know Thunder Rosa, she talked about it later on. She not apologized, but she was like, oh yeah, safety's my number one concern. It didn't really seem like it was her fault. It kind of seemed like it was Megan Bane and Penelope Ford's fault, but I don't know if it was entirely Megan's fault. I don't know. That thing did suck, though. Fernando said Black Adam would have been a huge hit if Veer was the star of the movie. They should have casted Veer. I heard he wasn't free. I heard he was filming $1 Million Arm 2, and that's why he couldn't be in Black Adam. Ahmed said Christian eating the loss tells you that does that tell you that Edge does not like putting over talent? Yeah, but it could be TK's call, like we talked about earlier. It could be TK saying, oh, I want to protect Edge, so Christian should take the pin, which was completely unnecessary. I guarantee you they had Christian in the match to take the pin to protect Cope, but I think that might have been a Tony Khan call and not a Cope call. But I could be wrong. We just don't know. Richie said WrestleMania 28 could have been 2 nights easily. Punk Jericho could have main evented on Saturday, but realistically it could have gone to the Hell in the Cell match, Rock and Cena on Sunday. Richie, I was thinking about Mania 28. The problem with that, though, is that Mania 28, let's say, you would have had to add other matches. I was thinking Mania 28, but WrestleMania 28 only had like 7 matches. I don't know how can you separate that into 2 nights, though? Jericho and Punk or the Hell in the Cell match easily could have main evented night 1. I totally agree with that. But the undercard wasn't as strong, though. Yeah, they only had 8 matches on the main card. So they would have really had to stretch. I mean, that undercard would not have been great. Yeah, you could have opened with Sheamus and Bryan on night 1, ended with the WWE title match. On night 2, maybe do the Hell in the Cell match in the middle of the show, and then Rock and Cena on night... I don't know. You could have figured it out. I'm not really sure how that would have worked out. But, like, yeah, they only had 8 matches, including a women's tag team match that meant nothing. They could have put the tag title match from the pre-show on the main card, but it wasn't, like, big enough to even be on the main card anyway. So that's why I say Mania 28. Yeah, for the main matches could have been 2 nights, but the undercard was kind of mediocre, so I don't know if it would have worked as a 2-night show. That was kind of the issue that I ran into there. 1 second. Let's see. Ahmed said 35. God, that was a long night, wasn't it? Night 1 main event, Bryan and Kofi. Night 2, Becky, Ronda, Charlotte, obviously with better in-ring. Yeah, obviously Mania 35 could have been 2 nights, but, you know, like Grunt said, saying 35 could have been 2 nights is just a cop-out answer because it was a long show. But yes, that should have been 2 nights. Or just get rid of some of the filler. Fernando said Mania 9, Hogan versus Sid Justice night 1, Savage versus Flair night 2. That's Mania 8, Fernando, not Mania 9. But was the undercard strong enough to warrant having 2 nights? That's the question. Mike has said, do you have a Dutch Bros where you live? Or Dutches? Is that the same thing as Dutch? Is Dutches and Dutch Bros the same thing? Because if it's not, then no. I don't know what Dutch Bros is. If you're talking about a Dutches, I've been there maybe once in the last 20 years, and there is one not near me, probably about 40 minutes away. Maybe closer, but that's the one that I remember seeing. Mikey said Andrade's doing nothing on WWE TV. I don't know what they're doing with him. He was doing the thing with The Miz, which was, who gives a shit. And then they teased something with him and Berto last week on SmackDown, which is fine, but it's like, okay, where are we going with this? He said Andrade is a part of WWE Catering Club. He's in charge of planning the meals for all of the wrestlers in the back. You're not entirely wrong, to be honest with you. Johnny said better 5 move combo, Cena or Hogan. Cena. I feel like Cena got the reputation for having the 5 moves of doom because it was so famous. Hogan, he also had better matches with that 5 move of doom as well. So I'm going to go Cena. Richie said Maria Menounos versus Eve Torres in a 1-hour Iron Man match. Yeah, that would that would have worked. That would have worked. Kill some time for sure. Johnny said, do you have a favorite WrestleMania match? I do. Let me see. I want to check something real quick. I did a whole series on my website, cheap plug, WrestleRant.com, where I did my top, I think, 35 favorite matches in Mania history, or favorite, 31 matches. It was before Mania 32 in 2016, so the list is kind of old at this point. There's other matches I would add now, but it was my top 30 favorite matches, or 31 matches in WrestleMania history. And I did a different match for a different day. Oh, okay, obviously, I wrote as number 1, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, Mania 25. Yeah, that's probably my favorite Mania match, to be honest with you. And this was back in 2016, so the list is probably different now. But number 1, Taker and Shawn, Mania 25. Number 2, Taker and Triple H for Mania 28. Number 3, Michaels and Kurt Angle for Mania 21. Number 4, Taker and Shawn from 26. And number 5, Orton and Seth Rollins from Mania 31. Honestly, if I were to remake that list, it wouldn't look that much different than it does now. Than that. I think Roman and Cody might be number 1 now because I was there for that. Roman Cody's actually probably my favorite WrestleMania match ever. Number 2. The first one was great too, but the second match at Mania 40 is probably my favorite WrestleMania match of all time, even more than Taker and Shawn. Might be a bold take. So I would redo that list. If I were to redo that list, that would be my new number 1, with Taker and Shawn being number 2. Let's see. Brodus Clay dancing for 2 hours straight on night 1. Richie said because they did the mama thing on Mania night 1. Yeah, maybe. Fernando said Mania 10, either Brett versus Owen or HBK Razor ladder match, night 1 main event, night 2 Brett and Yokozuna. So again, here's the problem. Well, actually, you know what? Night 1, night 2, it would have been Yokozuna on night 1, night 2, because they would have done Yokozuna Lex Luger on night 1 main event. Maybe not do a DQ finish or whatever the fuck they did. Have Yokozuna defend both nights. And then Brett and Owen opens night 1 still, and then closes, him and Yokozuna closes night 2. But again, the problem is the Mania 10 card full enough to do a 2 nights? Like, you're mentioning all the main matches, but you got to think of the other cards, the rest of the card, and adding other matches that would make sense for a 2-night Mania. So I don't know. I would have to look at the Mania 10 card. I don't really know what else was going on at that point. What other matches they could have added? Mikey said Dutch Bros is a coffee place. Yeah, I don't think we have that here in Connecticut. If we do, I've never heard of it. I'm also not a coffee guy unless it's coffee ice cream, so I'm not probably the best person to ask. Tyreek said Mania 21 for a 2-nighter. You know, again, I was also thinking of that, but I don't think the Mania 21 card was that big unless you add matches to justify it being a 2-hour show. I feel like as a 1-night show, it was awesome. It's like Mania 17. Why change it? You know, Mania 17 is arguably the greatest of all time. If it's perfect as a 1-night show, why make it 2 nights? I would probably say the same thing for Mania 21. Yeah, Mania 21 had 8 matches. You would have to add some matches. I mean, 9 if you include the pre-show Battle Royal, but, like, who cares? I think Mania 21 is perfect as a 1-night show. They had almost no filler on that show at all. Aside from Trish and Christy Hemme, which you needed a women's match on the show, Money in the Bank match, amazing. Ray and Eddie, amazing. Angle Michaels, amazing. Big Show and Akibono sucked, but whatever. Orton Taker, great. Cena JBL, fine match, but a big moment. And Batista Triple H, great. So I don't really think that needs to be a 2-night show. I think that's perfect as a 1-night show, personally. Ahmed said Andrade versus Jacob Fatu was a damn good match. They should have used him more after that performance. You're talking about Andrade, I agree. That was a really good match a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown. That was only 2 weeks ago. So I'm curious what they have planned for Andrade next, if anything. Alexa said my favorite WrestleMania match is Cody and Roman 2. I'm seeing that now after thinking about it, I would agree. I think my favorite Mania match of all time, not even in the time that I've been a fan, is probably got to be Cody and Roman 2. I would agree with that. Micah says, my favorite is Jimmy versus Jay of WrestleMania 40. What an instant classic. Not as much as this next one, though, as Richie mentioned. He said Graham's favorite WrestleMania match is Melina versus Alicia Fox. If only it happened at Mania, Richie. If it happened at Mania, then yes, it is my favorite Mania match. But because it didn't happen at Mania, it's my favorite match in SummerSlam history. Johnny said, you should do a revised list. I'll think about it. If it was a written list, it would take me forever. I love doing that Mania list. I put a lot of work and time and effort into that. It's on the website. Just go to my website. It's called WrestleMania Recall. If you click on the Columnist Corner column, I still have to put up my reviews of SmackDown and Raw from the past couple days, by the way, so bear with me on that. But if you go to the Columnist Corner, on the right side or the bottom of the website, depending on whether you're looking on the phone or on whatever, on a computer, there's categories. And WrestleMania Recall is one of the categories. You can see all the articles that I did for it in that column, all 31 matches. That was 9 years ago, so like I said, the list would be different. I would have to probably do more than 31 matches or my top favorite 30 WrestleMania matches. The list would definitely be different. But it took me so long. I wrote every day in the month of March, in addition to being busy with other stuff. I did it with SummerSlam, too, that same year. My favorite, 30 matches or 25 matches, whatever it was, in SummerSlam history. And that was fun. I think it might have been my top 20 favorite SummerSlam matches. But anyway, it took up a lot of time. So I don't know if I could do that again. But as a video, a one-off video, not a bad idea. He said, where do you have Stone Cold versus Bret Hart ranked? For my favorite Mania matches, I don't really know if I liked the match as much back then as I do now. I don't know where I ranked that. Let me check. Hold on. I have to look back through the list here. Hold on. I'm trying to see. I won't give away everything I have on my list because if you guys can check it out, read it yourself, that'd be great. What was the match? What was it? You mentioned let's see. Stone Cold and Bret Hart. It's not in the top 10. I'm almost positive that I ranked it. Let me look. I'm looking right now. I didn't really have a nostalgic attachment to that match. I didn't rank the best matches in Mania history, mind you. I ranked my favorite matches. There's a difference there. I don't know if it's on this list. I don't know if I did that match. It's kind of criminal that I didn't if I did not do it. Jericho, Edge, Jeff, and Matt. I would totally revise this list. Kurt and Brock. Yeah, I don't think I had that on the list, guys. I did not have Bret and Stone Cold on the list, which is sacrilegious. But, yeah, I would rank that on my list in the future. I don't have it on my list right now, though, which is kind of crazy. I don't know if I have a favorite WrestleMania match, honestly, Micah says. Yeah, there's a lot of them. I have a favorite WrestleMania as well. Richie said, do you have a guilty pleasure match from any show / pay-per-view WWE or match that you don't think gets as much recognition as it deserves, not counting Melina versus Alicia Fox? I know I do. I can't think of it right now. I'm sure there's just so many matches, none of them really come to mind. Bryan and Miz from Night of Champions 2010. I love that match. That was one of the first pay-per-views I ever bought. Really, really enjoyed that match. It's not an instant classic, but I think that's a really great match. There's definitely a lot more. 2011, any of the Orton Christian matches, but they get a lot of love. WrestleMania 27 show sucked, but Orton and Punk, I like that match at Mania. Yeah, I'd have to think about it some more, but those are a few of them. Grunt said, I think 19 could be a good candidate for a two-nighter. Yeah, 19 too. I didn't really look at the 19 card, but 19 probably had a lot of matches, so that probably could have worked. Mike has said, the first two matches my brain goes to is AJ. Hold on. The first two matches my brain goes to is AJ versus Shane, WrestleMania 33, and Cody versus Roman 1. Cody versus Roman 1 because I was on the edge of my couch and it wasn't predictable at that time. Do you have a favorite pay-per-view stage from WWE? Cyber Sunday 07 looked cool, he said, and they should bring that gimmick back or try it on NXT. Pay-per-view stage, WrestleMania 33. Cyber Sunday I liked. I don't know why they haven't brought that back for NXT. Kind of surprising. But definitely Mania 33 is my favorite pay-per-view stage. And WrestleMania 39. Alexis said Sami Zayn in the Jackass. The Jackass guy from Mania. Oh, talking about fucking... I don't remember. Oh, Johnny Knoxville. That was a great match. Yeah, Richie said it in the chat. That was a guilty pleasure as well. That was a lot of fun. Fernando said, what was your very first live wrestling show and what do you remember the most about it? First live wrestling show I went to was a indie show called Northeast Wrestling. Richie knows that. Richie knows all about that. May 2009, the main event was, I think, Jerry Lawler in a cage match against one of the local guys. I met Jerry Lawler that day. Wasn't overly friendly. He was okay. I remember my brother, who was like 9 years old at the time, trying to sneak in a baseball hat for him to sign, even though we had $5 and we definitely have enough money, but he signed the shit anyway. He was kind of standoffish. That was one of the first wrestlers I ever met on it, surprisingly enough, was Jerry Lawler. Matt Taven was on that show. I remember that. I remember the show. I couldn't, like, a lot of the people on the show were indie guys, but Jerry Lawler was there and Velvet Sky were there. Those were like the top two major names that were on that show. And my dad found out about it online, and then we went. So that was 16 years ago. First wrestling show I ever went to. A lot of fun, though. My first WWE show was an ECW SmackDown taping. It was right after I had the swine flu. I was sick as fuck. My mom still took me anyway. I wasn't sick that day, but I still wasn't feeling great. She still brought us anyway. We had a great time. And that was back in November of 2009 in Providence. That was a fun time, too. Yes, Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville at Mania, Alexis said. Richie said, yo, Cyber Sunday for NXT would be a cool concept. I agree. I'm surprised they haven't done it yet. Then Johnny also said, definitely WrestleMania 20 for NXT would be, or I already read that. Definitely WrestleMania 20 could have been 2 nights. 12 matches was a lot. I agree with that as well. Richie said, Wee Man scoop slamming Sami Zayn was insane. LMAO, huge pop. Yeah, that was a very fun match. NEW shout out indeed, Richie. And then Fernando said, we'll end with this because I got to get going here in a minute. But he said, how many free movies did you see when you worked at the theater? A lot. A lot. More movies than I would have seen otherwise. Let's put it that way. I saw a lot of movies I didn't really give a fuck about because it was free. But because it was free, I saw a lot of free movies. I saw Star Wars, some of the Star Wars movies for free when those came out. A lot of movies. And we were there for a few years, so I saw a lot of movies for free, which was great. And yeah, we see a lot of movies now. I'm more selective with the movies I see now, unless it's $5 Tuesdays. We know all about that, guys, now, don't we? But yeah, I saw a lot of movies. I couldn't even tell you. Probably, if I had to count, honestly, it would probably be like, maybe not 100, but like a little less than that. Maybe between 50 and 100. I feel like 100 is a lot. But definitely at least 50 movies. Probably more than that, though. Saw a lot of movies, and they were good movies, too. So that's going to do it, guys. Got to get going here. Thank you so much for a near 3-hour stream. I always say we're going to go shorter, and we never do. A lot of you guys chatting in. It's always a fun time. I appreciate the love and support so much. If you want to support the show, take advantage of the all-new Pro Wrestling Tees sale going on right now. I think it's called Merch Madness. Head on over to ProWrestlingTees.com/WrestleRant. Get one of the WrestleRant shirts, the regular WrestleRant shirt, the WrestleRant Christmas shirt, the WrestleRant Halloween shirt, all designed by Alexis. You can buy a shirt now for 20% off between now and Wednesday. The sale's been going on for a few days now. I haven't mentioned it any other time until now. I totally forgot. Take advantage of the sale. 20% off, probably a code you can use, so check that out. Link is also down below in the description box. Also, be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell button to be notified every single time we upload a new video and every single time we go live, including next time on Thursday for WrestleRant Radio with Mr. Marceau. And I think that does it, though. Be sure to like the video on the way out, like I said. Send in a question. That's the other thing I wanted to mention, too. Send in a question to the show if you're watching after the fact by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Monday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Last couple comments here. Mike said, it's Tuesday. What are you going to go see today with Alexis? No movie. We wanted to see Queen of the Ring today, but we have a movie. Yeah, Alexis said nothing today. We're doing trivia work night for her job, so we're going to do trivia. And it's at some bar or something like that. I'm not even a drinker, so hopefully they have some good food there that I can have with a Coke or whatever. But yeah, no movie today. We were going to see Queen of the Ring. We saw Paddington in Peru last Tuesday. Enjoyed that movie. She wants to see Mickey 17. She's going to see that probably with her brother soon. I said I'm busy Saturday anyway, so I said just go that day when I'm not going to be with you. But yeah, we're hoping to see Queen of the Ring probably tomorrow. I would miss Dynamite Live, but oh darn. Wrestle Wop, Richie said, not today, different day. We could do Wrestle Wop another day. GSM, or Micah said, GSM, thank you for your time, bro. 2 to 3 hours answering questions. Thank you, Micah. I appreciate it. Good luck on your trivia. Hopefully we win. Fernando said, excellent stream. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you for joining us as always. Micah says, W stream in the chat. I agree. Richie also says, a later chat. Later, Graham, W stream and chat as usual. And Alexis even said, they said food and soda are included. Let's fucking go. That just made my day. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for chatting, and especially everyone that chatted in. Everyone that's here now was here earlier. You guys are amazing. So until next time, folks, I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Have an awesome one, and I'll catch your ass down the road.